We're ready? Okay. Good evening and welcome to the January 15th, 2019 Board of Selectmen's meeting in the town of Wellfleet. We will begin by announcements, open sessions, and public comments. Please remember that the public comments must be brief. The board will not be able to deliberate or vote on any matter raised solely during the announcement and public comments. And always please get up and go to a microphone and state your name. Are there any announcements or comments from the board?
Kathy.
Okay, Kathleen.
I'd like to take a moment to commend the Wellfleet Fire Department for their professional and well-coordinated response to the private residence that was overtaken by a fire here Saturday morning. They were neighbors of mine, and we were all, we all felt safe with the way the fire was handled. I'd also like to give a big shout out to Lieutenant Joe Capello for leading the charge. I understand Chief Pauly's been down with the flu, so Joe handled this and they did a great job. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you. Okay, anyone else from the board?
Yes. I'm going to announce tonight that I will not stand for re-election. This coming April 29th, I believe it is. And I spent a combined 4 years on the Wellfleet Elementary School Committee and the Regional School Committee. I spent a year on the Board of Health. And at the end of this term, combined 25 years on the Board of Selectmen. No, it's just I have a problem with my emotions. It's not anything to do with that. It's, doctor told me it's old age. Anyway, I was honored to serve on all those committees, and I was honored to serve with every member on this board that I worked with. Boy, I hate this,
Well,
I'd rather be 30 again,
Well, wouldn't we all, Jerry?
Oh, God.
So anyway.
We're going to retire. We'll go to town meeting. Okay. I'm gonna do this in town meeting. And you still have a few weeks to change your mind. Any other announcements from the board?
Yeah, I'm gonna do what I usually do when somebody hands in their formal resignation from a board or committee. I thank them, and I'm going to thank John Cumbler, who has formally resigned from the Bike and Walkways Committee, and I'm also going to announce that that committee, given recent developments having to do with bicycles and questions about traffic and so forth, needs invigoration. We have an applicant whose application we're going to consider tonight, but hey, world out there, look at the charge on the town website and think about joining this committee and making it viable again.
Thank you.
Janet,
Anyone else?
through you to Helen, do we know the last time they met?
I think it dwindled, which sometimes happens.
Yep, the last time they had a meeting?
I don't know
The whole
that,
committee?
but they have dwindled,
Oh, I know that.
yeah.
Yes, Mr. Hort.
I would like to take this opportunity to introduce Courtney Butler, who is the new executive assistant to the town administrator and the Board of Selectmen secretary. She just started this week, so be nice to her tonight. In the next meeting, you can take after her, but be nice to her tonight.
Yeah.
And I also would like to make one other announcement on behalf of the Health Department. Winter Wednesdays is a free community program which is being offered to residents of Wellfleet, Truro, and Provincetown, and it's aimed towards bringing people together to learn new skills, meet other locals, and stay active and connected during the quiet winter months on Cape Cod. The program runs Wednesday evenings from 6 to 8 p.m., February 6th through March 27th. If you want more information on that, please look under the town's website and click on visitors. And we've got some other information there about programming that is coming to you during the off season. So when you're looking for things to do during the quiet winter months, there's plenty of activities to do. So information on Winter Wednesdays and other programming is on the visitors tab on the town's website.
Great.
Janet,
Yes.
through you. So it's just a bunch of people get together and do whatever they feel like?
No.
If I had read the whole thing, which I tried to keep it short, you would have known. So classes are held in Provincetown schools at 12 Winslow Street. Free childcare and transportation are available. This winter's offerings will include an experience in percussion, the art of dyeing, cake decorating, sewing for beginners, card making, the definitive Bogart film series, woodworking, and how to read an experimental novel.
Thank you.
So there is a structure to it as opposed to them
Yeah,
just getting
thank you.
together.
Interesting. Any comments, announcements from the audience? Mr. Putnam? You have to get up and go to the microphone, please.
After having listened to selectmen make their remarks, I would question Mr. Hort on exactly how he spelled dying in that last offer.
I think the way you took it.
D-Y-I-N-G.
Okay. Well, you know, that other side is getting popular. Yes, Nancy?
Good evening. Some people have been requesting information on the Massachusetts Shellfish Initiative, so I wanted to make an announcement that I am involved in that and have been. They have a fellow that is Mass Shellfish Initiative started as a grassroots initiative under the National Shellfish Initiative by a state implementing this sort of program. It opens you up for more federal funding and other support from the government, and a number of other states have done it. So some groups got together and proposed to start Mass Shellfish Initiative here. They conducted surveys and open public meetings to get feedback from the shellfishing community, recreational, wild, and aquaculturists, and stakeholders. And that was done a couple of years ago. And it's been kind of quiet because what started as a grassroots initiative, they realized would need state buy-in in order to implement. So they went to the Division of Marine Fisheries, and the Division of Marine Fisheries decided that they would take it to the governor's office, and they have created a task force. That task force met on January 2nd, and actually asked them to take a step back still. So they had proposed to come to the table with a couple of working groups, subcommittees, and what the task force said is, we would prefer if you take a step backwards and actually give an assessment of the lay of the land currently, because the research that they had done was a couple of years old. So I have been involved with them. They have a fellow that works at DMF. I took him on patrol with me, introduced him to fishermen in the wild, had them talk to him and give some feedback to him. We are going to have the initiative representatives come and present to the Shellfish Advisory Board, and the chair of the Massachusetts Shellfish Officers Association, which is our constable professional organization, is on the task force. So constable voices will be well represented there as well. I had heard that there might be some interest in asking me to be on the task force. It might be a heavy lift at this time because the task force has already been selected, and there's, I think, 29 people on it. But I'm game if that's what people want to do, and at the very least I can join this assessment committee if we feel it's appropriate. And if they decide to move forward with those 3 other proposed working groups, that's another way to tap in. But the constables were from Cape Cod were at the Northeast Aquaculture conference and exposition last week, and we met and talked about this as a way for us to make sure that our voices are heard and that we carry the voices of our fishermen. So I think having them come to the Shellfish Advisory Board and do a presentation will be an open and public meeting, and we'll move it, if need be, out of the small conference room in the basement. But it is something that's being worked on. It's kind of just at the ground level right now, so this is the perfect time for us to get involved.
Great. Does anyone have any questions about that or anything? Okay, good. Thank you, Nancy. From the audience? Yep, Ms. Flaxman.
Great, thank you. So this is the, are you going to the?
Yeah.
So I'm Rhoda Flaxman, and I started the Open University of Wellfleet in 2013, April of 2013. And I'm here simply to tell people about what we've been doing since then. Some of you actually have taken some of our courses, and this is a homegrown operation that is trying to keep the legacy of the arts and the literature of Cape Cod. We attract people from all over the Cape. When I started it, there were 3 courses and 30 students. And now we had, last semester, 150 students in 6 courses. So it's very exciting to see how much interest there is and demand for intellectual courses at a very high level during the off-season, during the winter. We run courses in spring and fall for 5 weeks. People come for 2 hours a week and pay $60. We're not in it to make money. We're in it for general intellectual excitement and to meet people. And it's been very exciting because it ends up feeling like a community of thinkers and doers. And this spring, I just wanted to tell you a little bit about what we're doing this spring. We will have a course on Virginia Woolf. We will have a drama course on Oklahoma on Stage and Page, having to do with the new Oklahoma that's on Broadway. We're going to have the economic history of the United States with John Kumbler. We're going to have a survey of New England photography. Ed Miller is going to teach a course on journalism and civic engagement. We have politics in film and fiction, and just today, I talked John Thornley into doing a history of architecture. So I've been looking for someone to teach architecture for a long time, and I'm very pleased with that. On top of that, we are going to have an art pilgrimage, our second field trip, with Grace Hopkins, who's going to take us to Vermont around the area of Brattleboro. So I encourage all of you to look for our posters. The hardest thing we have is to publicize this adequately, and we try not to compete with other programs that are doing what I might call skills. Some of the things in Provincetown, for example. So please watch for our notice. We have a website. It's called openuniversityofwellfleet.org. We have posters, and we try to tell everybody what we're doing. We also have lots of fun going to the lighthouse after our classes for a glass of wine. And it's just been a terrific experience to run this. So I encourage you all to come.
Thank you. It is really good.
So I thought there wouldn't be enough people here for a winter session, but last year we tried 2 courses. We had about 30 people, and this winter session, which is the poster that I gave to the select people up there, we have 4 courses and 60 students, including Roger Putnam.
Yay.
I would also add to that if you want more information on this winter's classes, it's on the town's website as well, under the visitors tab.
Oh,
Yeah,
great.
good. Thank you. It is wonderful. We have lots of good things going on. Anyone else from the audience? Yes.
Damian Parkington, Wellfleet. I just wanted to read a few of my thoughts on a proposed change in the shellfish regulations.
So, Damien, wait until we can you wait until we get to it, because it is going to come up on our agenda?
Sure, I
Right.
thought that open speech was now. I can.
It is open now, but because it's on the agenda, there'll be more discussion, and we'll be more prepared. There'll be more time to discuss suggestions. That makes sense? Good, won't be long. Anyone else from the audience?
Merrill.
Yes,
Merrill.
yeah. Yes, Carrie.
I'm Merrill Mead Fox from Wellfleet. My husband and I went to the meeting last night of this rather large vociferous group of people that are against the bike path. And I know there's been a long discussion about this, and I'm not going to get into it in detail, but I guess partly because there's a big letter writing campaign that's going to be happening, and you all will be receiving more letters about this. I just wanted to encourage people that are for the bike path to write letters as well. I feel very sad about all the anger that's there about this wonderful opportunity, I think. And I do understand the concerns about safety, and wanted to make one small proposal, and I'll write you a letter as well about this. But I wonder if, rather than scrapping the entire thing, which is what many people seem to be proposing, that we consider keeping the bike path extension as is, and then perhaps having something like an electric shuttle bus that could shuttle people to the pier. And I just would like that to be something that people consider as an option because of all the concerns about a bike path down Route 6 and through the intersection of Cahoon Hollow Road. So that's all I'll say for now.
Okay, thank
Janet?
you. I'm sure there's going to be, I know there's going to be more public meetings and hearings on this. Yes, Helen?
I was at the meeting last night, too, and I listened to every word, and I have to say unequivocally, with great respect, that most of the people in that meeting were not against the bike path. They just had issues with some of the safety. They had safety concerns that, after I left the meeting, were very real. But this is not on the agenda, and we're going to
Right.
have, I hope, another public hearing with the DOT about it. But it was not, most of the people in that room were not against having a bike path going all the way to Provincetown.
Okay, well, it does say the board will not deliberate, so, good, thank you. We'll end it at that. Always two sides, if not 4, 5, or 6 sides to every story. Any other public hearing announcements, comments? All right, moving on to the change in Wellfleet shellfish policy and regulations. Nancy, and then, yep, we can get right in a second. So we did get something, so could you clarify what we got tonight as opposed to what we got before?
What I handed out to you only changes what originally said, changing section 7.8.1. It should be 7.8.1 and 7.2.
Oh,
So that's the
okay.
only change on that.
Okay, thank you.
But on the back of the erroneous thing we got
Yes,
is
the
what we should be
explanation,
looking
yes.
at.
Okay, Nancy, yes, you can make the presentation.
Okay, so last year we had a grant get given back to the town, possibly the first time in Wellfleet's history that the public land was given back to the town to find a new leaseholder. And per our regulations, we accept applications. There were criteria, and then we went to a lottery because there was obviously more than one person applied. As I was trying to discern eligibility, the language in the section 7.8.1 was not clear enough to guide me as I looked through these applications. And I went back and forth with town council, and she suggested that we really put more specifics in there in order to help clarify and understand more fully, more in a black and white sort of way, I guess. Yes, you're eligible, or no, you're not. So I brought it to the Shellfish Advisory Board, and we probably had 3 or 4 meetings discussing it. And this is the language that the committee members, the board members came up with. I tried to do it so it was very clear in terms of strike-throughs and bolding our additions or edits. And it just, I think, the prevailing feeling was that it's important that people have experience in order to put their name into a lottery for a grant, in order that we have productive aquaculture in the town, and that people do that by working on each other's grants or working on other people's grants, by fishing in the wild and understanding biology of oysters and how they change over time. So I feel like these regulations kind of reflect that. The other thing is that I brought to the Shellfish Advisory similar regulations from other towns on the Cape, so that I knew that we weren't doing something kind of overly tight or restrictive, and I brought those to the board to look over, and then and that's where the 5-year business plan, for example, came in, because other towns are doing that, and we felt that would be appropriate as people get added to grants.
Okay. Any comments from the board or questions? Justina?
Madam Chair, through you, can you tell me a little bit more about what a 5-year business plan means?
So it would be outlining what you plan to, knowing what your own resources are, outlining how you plan to plant your grant. So are you going to be collecting wild seed? Are you going to be making a purchase from a hatchery? Are you going to be investing in racks and bags? Are you going to be doing clams? And what does that look like over time? In the beginning of our regulations, minimum productivity is always $1,000, but in your first years, you can make that investment into aquaculture gear. That counts for your first 3 years. Purchase of gear counts. After the first 3 years, then it has to be investments into seed.
Sure. I mean, like how many pages and so forth. I'm just, the reason I'm really asking is, well, I do volunteer small business consulting, and sometimes for professions where people work with their hands outdoors all day long, the word business plan can be intimidating. And I know you took it through the Shellfish Advisory, like how many pages? It's not like a 20-page document that's being looked for, right?
Most people have to do it as part of their annual grant every year.
So it's already being done, and it's not
I think
a
it
change.
might be 3 years, but it might be 5 on the annual grant
So it's
form.
not a change from what's already being done.
No, I mean, anybody who has a name to a grant has to provide an annual grant report to the town.
Right.
And in that, it talks about your business plan for the next 3 or 4 or 5 years. I can't
Got
remember
it.
what it is.
Okay.
Any questions from the audience or comments? And go to the microphone, please, again, Damien.
Damien Parkington, Wellfleet. I had a quick question, if it's permissible to Nancy.
Yeah.
Earlier in the day, we had a conversation in which it seemed to me you implied that going forward, the town, you representing the town in the Shellfish Department, would like to see more grants handled in this approach, handled in the sense of being turned back to the town and then redistributed to the community. Is that correct?
It would be great, but if somebody finds a suitable person to name to their grant, that's the way it's, I mean, it would be great for us to be able to offer it to somebody new that doesn't have any sort of relationship with aquaculture, but right now, it's just the transfer. You can put somebody else on there, so
Sure,
there's nothing wrong with that.
Right.
But sure, wouldn't it be great if it could come back and be?
And then redistributed through the
Yeah,
town?
yeah.
I'm
I mean, I'm not going to discount that. Both options are fine.
Sure. Then I'd like to just read some thoughts on this.
Sure.
I would like to see Wellfleet's shellfish policy match the current state practices in other fisheries. 1 working year in aquaculture or 2 full years in general commercial fishing, as supported by catch reports or 1099s with a greater than 50% annual income from fisheries. I further suggest that an open book assist test be administered to all applicants to demonstrate that the applicant is familiar with navigating the databases for policy, regulation, and enforcement. No notes should be allowed, as the test would measure and reinforce the ability to source the regulatory information that is in perpetual flux. I think anyone in the fisheries understands that. The reason that I'm opposed to the wording of the regulatory change is that I feel it is characteristic of management techniques that categorize and polarize fishermen and farmers. It's debilitating to the establishment of diverse markets, products, and acts to repel the entrepreneurial spirit of startups, specifically young families that might entertain embracing Wellfleet's aquaculture industry. Lastly, I can only point to the broader management of fisheries and state that in all cases, as young fishermen feel that licensure is difficult to obtain or unattainable, the easier that consolidation occurs. Meaning that if from this point forward, you tell someone that they need 3 years or 4 years aquaculture experience or 3 years commercial fishing experience, you've just pushed that 20-year-old kid to a 25-year-old man entering now his fledgling business. It's very limiting. You're disconnecting that young person or that, any person really from the possibility that it can happen, that success can start more instantly, With that disconnect, it is amplified within the community. And I know I'm running out of time. But
No, you haven't, no, that's fine, because once, it's only brief at the very beginning. So no, this is fine. And Nancy, can you answer all those questions, please?
So
concerns?
the change in the regulations just added 1 year. So it was 2 out of 3, now it's 3 out of 4 for wild. And then it's basically saying a little bit about what you were saying, like with catch reports, so that more in line with other fishery criteria, because then you're seeing that somebody's making their living. And I understand, wanting to have the next generation get into the fishery, and I think these were sculpted with that in mind. I think people want the next generation to get in. They just want to make sure that they have the experience so that they're successful.
Helen,
Yeah,
can you add to that?
Yeah, so, Mr. Parkington, I was on the Shellfish Committee for 9 years. And even before our excellent constable came on board, this was discussed. It would sort of cycle through. And one of the things that was very clear to everybody, there was no disagreement about it, is the thing about the harbor is, we have air. If you're farming next to someone on land, the air moves. And people whose farming areas abut each other are affected by that. It's even more so in the harbor. So a reasonable way to approach somebody having the huge responsibility of an aquaculture lease is for them to have as much experience as possible. And tell me if I'm wrong, people in the shellfishing industry and the audience and the constable, I don't think I am, because I've been trying to learn all these years. There's a lot of employment. There is serious apprenticeship employment that goes on. So a young person may not be able to get named to a lease right away, but they are working and they are in the business and they are being paid for it, and there are other variations of that. But the apprentice system is key to making sure that, particularly in the block grants, whoever's on there knows more what they're doing than less, because everybody is affected. It's really serious if things go wrong. So it's not a discouragement, it's kind of an insurance for a community that is so interconnected by the water. That's my take on it, and that's my take after listening to a lot of people talk about it who actually do fish, which I do not. So you can take me with a grain of salt.
I don't know whether it's the appropriate time for further comment. I'll just encourage everyone to potentially re-examine deeply with the issue at hand.
Any other comments from the audience or questions? Well, I certainly see his point. And I have to say, I just don't know as much about shellfishing as everybody else in here does. Justina?
I wouldn't pretend to know a lot about shellfishing either, but I'm out on my partner's grant a lot, and it takes a long time to learn to see what you're doing. And there's lots of jobs. There's not a lot of labor needed, so I think it's a system that's kind of working. I see a lot of happy young people working on grants and then getting on grants. And I do think, I'm just an opinion of one, and Nancy, you know the opinion of the Shellfish Advisory and all the grant people you talk to. I think there's a lot to it, and it takes a long time to learn to handle live product in all different kind of weather and conditions and know how to do it. If you're working on a grant and happy for 3 years and then you get on a grant, it seems like a good system. I don't think 1 year would be enough.
Kathleen?
I also see Damien Parkington's point. Damien's a born and raised Wellfleet young man, and he's been involved in the commercial fishing business, I believe, almost all his life, his working life. And what he's saying is, wouldn't it be great if we could get younger people into this $6.5 million industry here in Wellfleet sooner rather than later? I also understand Nancy's point and Helen's point to having some type of insurance that the people that are on these grants do have the skills and the knowledge for the aquaculture and the farming that they're going to be involved in. But with great respect to Damien's comments, thank you very much.
Anyone else from the audience, from the board? Yes, you need to go to the microphone, thanks.
I'm Jenny Parker. I don't know the regulations as well as Damien does, but I have a question regarding some of our young gentlemen who actually are clammers and they fish out of hyenas. I can think of a few who are lifelong Wellfleet people. A couple of them may live out of town right now. Their clamming area has just been closed down. So there might be a reality that someday they're going to want to come back here to Wellfleet. And maybe Nancy can answer, if somebody like Damien, who has a long-term commercial shellfishing history, and these young men I can think of who are early to mid-30s, wanted to come back, would they have to do the same type of apprenticeship? Some of them may have had grant experience before. I'm quite sure probably they have, but we know they transition a bit. So that's just I don't know how that would affect them.
So they could get a commercial shellfishing permit in town if they are a domiciled resident, and they can immediately start making a living. And then they would probably need to invest 3 years with the new regulations into being a wild harvester. And then they could get put on a grant unless they have some of the experience documented here as a grant employee at some point.
So they could bring prior skills.
Sure. I mean, if they had worked on a grant somewhere else and they can prove that and have the grant holder write a recommendation letter.
Okay.
Yep.
That's all. Just want to, I just want to bring to your attention that we do have this class of citizens that are commercial fishermen and have background, and I just want to make sure that they're covered. Thank you.
Yeah.
Good. Damien?
I just want to make a point, and you're right, I am a commercial fisherman for quite a long time. I consider myself very well informed in fisheries regulation and management. By Nancy's criteria, I don't know that I would qualify, even, and we'd had this discussion earlier in the spring with a last-minute phone call, but even by this current regulation, I don't know that I would qualify to apply for a grant. It would probably, just the way that it's worded, it would probably fall under discretion of the shellfish warden. And I only bring that up, not that I plan to do that, or that not in my personal interest, but that even as it's trying to be very clear, it's very unclear.
May I? I don't think I have discretion. That's why
what I
it
was
was so difficult. But if you have had a commercial fishing, a wild permit for the past 3 years, which I believe you did, you would have qualified.
The
You did
discre-
qualify last time.
The discretion would lie in determining what is landings. There's no amount. Is it one landing? Is it 50 landings? Is it all your income from commercial fishing? Is it 50%, 20%?
Yeah, we don't have that. We
Yeah.
don't have that kind of a specification in
Yeah.
here.
Helen?
You do have the requirement, though, for the catch report. So it's documented that you've been fishing, whatever's on it, okay? And this is, the conversation at the Shellfish Advisory Committee dealing with this weighed how it is that this shouldn't be gamed. I'm not speaking English. In other words, people in the past from other towns and so forth have gamed this a bit. And this language really takes care of that, in my opinion. And it also covers, it leaves room for someone like yourself. I'm not sure, you saw a copy of this, obviously, because you're speaking to it, but the thing about regulations is one has to get along with them and really focus in order to get them. Not because they're hard to understand, but because every word counts. And this satisfies me. I agreed with Nancy that there were loopholes in it.
Before.
Actually, there have been 2 lotteries in the last 19 years, but they almost never happen. But this covers the other situations. So we're only talking about the first one now, right? Or are we talking about both of them?
When I
was
did
taking
my
it as a whole.
introduction, I was talking about both.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Anyone else? Does that help you at all? A little bit? Nope. So keep talking to Nancy. We can always change the regulations again if it's unclear, but keep talking to her and some other people and see how it goes. See what happens. Okay.
I have a question. My emotions are good now. So if someone, say, is 16 years old and is out working on a grant, there's no age limit, correct?
Oh, yeah.
To have.
So if they've had
For-
3 years' experience and they're 19,
Yeah.
that's fine. Okay.
I think you
Just-
have to be 18 to be named to a grant.
18.
But you could be working on a grant
Sure.
at 16.
Yep.
So once you reach that age, then you're good. That's all I want to know. Just want to make sure that there's no, because I don't see any age limit in here.
No, the age is in a different section
Yeah,
of the regulations.
yeah. All right.
Oh, well, it does say 18 years or age or
Yeah, it does.
older.
No, but I
To
mean,
hold- to
3
have-
years of experience is 3 years of experience.
Right, whether
Whether
you're
you're
16, yeah.
16,
That's right,
17,
yeah.
and then you turn 18.
Yep, and we have junior commercial permits, so.
Okay. All right. Any other questions or comments? All right. Can I have a motion, please?
I move to approve the changes to section 7.8.1 and 7.2 of the Wellfleet Shellfish Policy and Regulations as recommended by the Shellfish Constable.
Second.
All in favor? Okay, so it's a done deal. Thank you, and thank you, Damien. Just keep working, just keep it going, because I know when it's always very hard to do regulations. And you try to cover everything, but there are things that fall through the cracks. So observe it and see if it works or if it doesn't work, and talk to Nancy or the Shellfish Advisory Board again, right? Do you have anything to say, Michael, about it? Okay.
I would just encourage you to come to Shellfish Advisory because they're really good observations, and we could use your input.
Okay, thank you. Now we're up for, now we're doing the renewals. Okay. So next is Shellfish Grant Transfer and Renewal from Michael Parlante and Carolyn Mindebro and Daniel Rice to Michael Parlante and Daniel Rice. Do you want to come to the microphone, or does Nancy have anything to say about that, or?
I learned about it from the packet, and I support it. I didn't have time
Okay.
to write a
Okay.
letter of
Okay.
approval or recommendation, but I think this is great.
And you're up on all the qualifications?
Yeah, because she's coming off. It's just Carol's coming off.
Yeah.
Right, yeah. Oh, she's coming off, right. Sorry.
Any other comments or questions from the board, from the audience? Okay, may I have a motion?
Madam Chair, I move to transfer Shellfish Grants 735, 735A, and 736 from Michael Parlante, Carolyn Mindebro, and Daniel Rice to Michael Parlante and Daniel Rice. Second motion, I move to renew Shellfish Grant licenses number 735, 735A, and number 736 for a 10-year period for Michael Parlante and Daniel Rice.
Second.
Okay.
I thought we said that we couldn't do a 10-year with Winslow.
Okay, well, this is this, okay, any other comments, questions from the board? Okay, all in favor? Okay, thank you.
Oh, we couldn't do a 7-year.
All right, and the next one is, I think the Tessons, application from Ed Tesson to renew Shellfish Grant License, number 2010-01 for a 10-year period. Any comments,
Shellfish
Nancy?
Constable recommends.
Okay, any comments, questions, problems?
Question, Mr. Tesson is the only one named to the grant? Only name on the grant, right.
Okay, all right, may I have a motion?
I move to renew Shellfish Grant License 2010-10 for a 10-year period for Edward Tesson.
Second,
All in favor? Okay, thank you. And now, Shellfish Grant renewal for Patrick Winslow?
Can I just say something?
Sure.
I would just like to request to amend my request for a renewal to 5 years from the 7 and 5 months. That's okay.
I can't hear.
He's going to only
amend.
Any
for 5 years.
comments on that, Nancy?
Yeah, this is a great request, and he will sink his 2 grants at the next cycle. If you can understand what that means.
Well, usually someone going down is not, doing a few years is not a great request, but I'm learning all this.
This is
Okay.
the way the regs actually
Yeah.
are quite specific, and we're just going to do it by the book.
Simplify. Okay,
And,
yeah.
and he wants to have both of his grants renew at the same time for his business planning purposes. It makes sense to me.
great.
He'll do that next time.
All right. Any questions, comments from the board, from the audience? Let's have a motion.
I move to renew Shellfish Grant License 2010-
Nope,
oh, wait a minute. Hold on a minute.
here.
Should be 2,000.
2ZZ, 200, here.
I'm sorry.
You got it?
Yeah, except, you know what?
What?
This is a typo, because Edward Tesson's was the same number, so Nancy.
The grant license number should be 2000-10.
Yeah.
2000-10.
My mistake.
Okay, sorry. It's all okay. I move to renew Shellfish Grant License number 2000-10 for a period of 5 years for Patrick Winslow.
Second,
Second. All in favor? Thank you. And thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Nancy. Okay, moving on to beer and wine license for SPAT. And this, for the audience, is for a 2-day beer and wine license for October 19th and 20th of 2019 in the Town Hall parking lot. Do you want to do any presentation or just get right to it?
Well, I just would like to introduce Giselle Gauthier, who is our event coordinator, and I don't know if a lot of you know her, so I wanted to introduce Giselle.
Hi. This is
Welcome.
actually, I've been with the fest for 4 years now, and this coming year will be my 5th.
Can't hear a thing. I couldn't hear any of that, I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. This coming year will be my 5th year with the festival.
Okay. Any questions or comments from the board? Everybody signed off on it. There's no funny things attached.
Wait, can you respectfully?
Sure.
Can you please add the language that came from the police department to the motion? In other words, the police department requests in some way add it to the motion to stop serving at 4:30 p.m. and no alcohol can be drunk after 5.
Helen, do you want to
So do you want to make the motion? Yeah, come on, just do it.
Okay, well, I'll do my best.
No, I haven't seen the signed, we haven't seen it.
Okay.
Okay, that's fine with us. We haven't seen the department head's
Yeah.
comments, so
That
that's
was-
fine.
It's very
We-
clear.
Yeah, absolutely, that's perfect, and in the past, we have even stopped serving before then.
Okay.
So, but 4:30 is a really reasonable time.
And stop no more consumption after 5. That's a
5
little
o'clock.
harder, but it's on you.
Right.
Okay.
Well, that's when the fest closes, so.
I know.
Yeah,
Okay,
thank
I
you.
move to approve a 2-day beer and wine license for Wellfleet Spat in a secure and contained area located in the Town Hall parking lot on October 19th and 20th, 2019, from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. each day, with the condition that alcohol will not be served after 4:30 p.m., and alcohol will not be drunk after 5 p.m.
Is there a second?
Second?
Any other? Okay, all in favor? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, let's see, okay, Class 2 license vintage auto. Do you want to say anything? I'm assuming this is your auto? Okay.
Whose auto?
Isn't it
This is
Richmond Bells? Yeah,
He's not here this evening.
yeah, oh, I thought that was him, sorry. Okay,
I can make a motion for
Can
you.
I move to approve the renewal of the Class 2 license for vintage auto, sorry.
Second?
all in favor? Thank you. All right, now we have appointments and reappointments. The first one is the Local Housing Partnership. Anyone here from the Local Housing Partnership? Yes, there she is.
So Ann Suggs could not be here tonight, and I'm, authorized to talk for her, but Autumn emailed me or texted me and said that she was going to be late because her daughter was at a game. So I'm wondering if we could move it a little bit later in
Sure.
the schedule?
Do you know what time she's getting here about?
I don't know,
Okay,
it depends on her daughter's game, I guess.
okay,
but-
all right. Yes,
Thank
we will postpone that. And now Bike and Walkways Committee. We have Rebecca Noble up for appointment. Any questions or comments about that? So your first job would be to find out if there is a Bikeways Committee. I mean, it's really, we talked about that a little bit, and I looked it up today, and there are 2 openings. I think it was over a year ago that somebody on the committee told me that it is no longer viable, or they're done. And so you might want to check with that, but I'm sure, yeah. And then the other thing that you need to know, if you're on the committee and the rail trail, the Cape Cod Rail Trail comes up because you are an abutter and because you own a bicycle shop that you can benefit from, you would have to recuse yourself. You know that, what? Okay.
Respectfully, no. She is not an elected official. She would have to come to her appointing authority and ask and submit a disclosure.
Okay, so she
and
could do
ask
a
for
dis-
our
yeah.
dispensation or not, and there's a formal procedure for that. So, sorry.
Yes, I've been told about that, so I'm prepared for
Okay.
that.
Okay.
And Ned Oliver is still on the bike committee.
Okay, good. All right. Any other questions or comments?
Madam Chair, I actually am struggling with my conscience here because I think you and your husband feel very passionately, have a passionate position on the bike trail and have been very active. And I hope that,
I avidly support the rail trail, so I'm not quite sure. I want it to be improved. And if there are no other options, for example, going down the power lines, which I intend to advocate for, then I will wholeheartedly support what they're doing and advocate for it to be the safest possible way. So I am avidly for it. I know there are other people that are just against any bike trail, and I don't want to be lumped with them because that is not me and not my opinion or my husband's.
no, Madam Chair, I think that perhaps I didn't speak carefully enough. You and your husband have been very busy on this, on some bike-related issues, and I think that successfully sitting on a town committee means being fair and impartial and weighing, many sides of an issue and so forth. And that would be my comment on that.
Well, as I understand it, being on the Bike and Walkways Committee is being in favor of them, which I am passionately. So I'm excited to try to volunteer and help in that regard.
Any other comments or questions?
Just as an FYI, someone asked earlier how long it had been since this committee had met. I just looked it up, and their last agenda posted was July of 2017.
That's what I
So it's
thought.
been about a year and a half.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's not too long.
The first thing, well, there are a number of things. I
Onward,
say this
yeah.
to everybody that's coming on a committee or board for the first time, and go ahead, hate me. You have to read the open meeting law, and you have to read the conflict of interest law, and you have to get sworn in. But most important, you have to find out what the charge is, which you do by going to the town website. Because I don't know how many people are supposed to be on it, but you can't meet until there's a quorum. So if you don't have enough people, okay, you got to beat the bushes and get somebody else and make it very clear to them that they are then going to be working for the town, which is basically what Justina said. You will be a special municipal employee, and just like the people on the Shellfish Committee, you are not working for yourself. You're bringing your expertise to it and your interest. You're working for the town and for everybody in the town.
Well, I would love to do that. That's exactly what I want to do. And I'll be happy to recuse myself if there's a place where I need to.
Good. I think right now is John Kumbler still on the board,
No,
on the
he
committee?
resigned.
He resigned?
Just,
Okay.
we just thanked
We
him.
just said that this evening.
Did we?
Oh,
Okay.
yeah, really.
Good, okay. Yeah, all right, well, let's look for more people for the bike committee. All right, can I have a motion?
I move to appoint Rebecca Broadwick Noble to the Bike and Walkways Committee for a term to expire June 30th, 2021.
Second?
Okay. Okay, any other questions? Okay, all in favor? Okay, so 3-2.
And this is-
Opposed, wait, opposed? Abstaining? Okay, 2 abstaining. Okay, thank you.
I'm sorry, was that abstentions or
No,
opposed?
they voted
I'm sorry,
against.
it was against, sorry. I'm always trying to get one step ahead to keep this moving along, sorry.
Why?
Okay,
Smart. She's great.
right?
Yeah,
So 3-4, 2 against.
yeah.
Yeah, okay. All right. Council on Aging Advisory Committee, we have, so I think this has been amended too from last meeting that it's
Oh.
just you, Laura, and not Peg
That's correct.
Cardiff? Yeah, okay. Okay, so Laura, do you want to come to the microphone and introduce yourself?
My name is Laura Gazzano, and I've been a resident of Wellfleet for the last 28 years. And Moved here from California. My husband was transferred, and we intended to stay here for 5 years.
No,
and fell in love with the community, and
Ms.
here we make our home.
Speak right into the microphone.
Sorry, couldn't hear anything.
Oh, I'll start again. My name is Laura better?
Yes.
Laura Gazzano, and I've been a resident of Wellfleet for 28 years. My husband was transferred here from California. Our intention was to stay here for 5 years and then to go back to the West Coast. But we fell in love with Wellfleet, and so we raised 2 kids, launched 2 kids here, and have both retired. This is my 2nd year of retirement. I was a 2nd grade teacher in Charles Central School, and my mission now, I think, is to give back to the community. So I had an opportunity to visit the Council on Aging's board meeting, and I was very encouraged by what I saw. It's a good working community. My mother-in-law, Rose, lived here with us for the last 3 years of her life, and we utilized a lot of services out of the Council of Aging, and there's wonderful, wonderful programs. So my mission is now to have an opportunity to give back to the community in some ways, this way or in another way. So.
Okay, thank you. Any questions, comments from the board? From the audience? May I have a motion?
Absolutely, and we're thrilled to have you. Move to appoint Laura Gazzano to the Council on Aging Advisory Committee for a term to expire June 30th, 2021.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Okay, thank you. And now we have approval of use of town-owned property on Saturday and Sunday, October 19th and 20th, 2019, from SPAT, again, Oysterfest.
So,
Anything you want to add or explain?
I don't think
Any
we really have any changes this year, no?
So I have
Questions?
a couple of things that really floated up to me.
Okay.
So, what we all know now, because we've all gotten after our conversation about the Live for Lou area, since then, if you remember when we discussed it that day, in relation to an event, I said, you know, the CONSCOM has issues about that section, that area, the Live for Lou garden.
Wait a minute. The Memorial Garden, it's not just a Live for Lou garden.
Okay, sorry. Thank you.
Thank you.
It's referred to as the Live for Lou in this, but thank you. The Memorial Garden. And in fact, we, in the meantime, have gotten a communication verifying and amplifying what I sort of remembered. And that area is still has pending things in relation to the CONSCOM and cannot be used in certain ways. So that is a condition for our approving the use of town property, that you only do it as allowed by the Conservation Health Department. In other words, you know, there are things you can do, there are things you can't do. It's a public space, but you can't use it for certain things, okay? And it's a separate liquor license issue than Pres Hall, but you're not going to be serving liquor there. So that was my first concern, that you absolutely are sure with Hillary what you can and can't do there. The second thing is, so you're asking in the language that we got in our packets very reasonably for use of town property, not just for the 2 days, which is what's in the motion, but actually in a very big way from October 15th to October 21st. And when we make the motion, we have to grant you that. Otherwise, you have no right to be using the parking lot like that to take it over for installation, which you need to do. Fair enough, you do it every year. But it worries me that maybe in the past, I can't remember what I did last year on this. Somewhere it's in the motion in the archive, but those two, that has to be paid attention to us when we make the motion by us.
And we did do that last year. We included all, the whole.
But it's not in the motion now.
Yep. Any other questions or concerns?
I just want to clarify what Helen's saying with regard to the Memorial Garden. The conservation agent here has still has active conditions on that property. And as such, it's very limited to its use. Having said that, this will be an oyster fest that goes forward without that particular piece of property. You know, we want to make that known to you, so.
Could you read that language to us? Because we're not privy to what that was. And can I just say, last year, we were very sensitive to that area because we value that as an addition to the community. And so we were very careful about it. We had just some sort of roaming entertainers. We didn't have food in there. We had really light usage. So, in fact, to maximize its visibility, we moved the vendors that were usually on the street right in front of the garden to the other side of the street so people could see it. They could sit in the benches. I thought it worked out really, really well. And as far as I was aware, there wasn't any damage or anything. So I thought we found a good balance, and people, sat in there. It was really lovely. But if there are any particular instructions we should know about,
It's the same.
Okay, and we'll double check. I made a note to myself, so we will talk to Conscom and the health department and just, hear their feedback just to make sure. But one other additional point I want to clarify that Helen just brought to my attention is that we do serve wine at and beer at our culinary events at Pres Hall.
Okay, so Janet? Yeah.
Meaning what? Meaning that you want an
Yep.
an extension of the time in the day, or how do you want to word that?
Could we extend our liquor license? And we've never done this before. We've been holding these programs and thinking that it sort of kind of goes under the umbrella of our license, but of course not. It's two different venues.
Does Pres Hall need a license?
They have their own license.
They do have their own license. So
I don't know why you're operating on your own license when you're under their roof.
Well, this is true, and we have a rental agreement with them, so I'll just make sure that we include that in our rental agreement.
Yeah.
Okay.
Janet?
Helen?
Yeah, so the memo that Hillary sent out to us, I'm sure she would copy you with, A. B, it's a public space, so people can wander through it. Just don't have anything happening, organized events on it. Do you see what I mean? Like, don't have a performance on it or anything like that. But it's a public space. People can sit down and wander through it.
We had Trevor the juggler just kind of, juggling and meandering through. That was the only thing we had last year.
The thing about the liquor license, so doesn't that mean that Pres Hall has to ask, does Pres Hall have to, no, because they have it
one.
ongoing.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Right, that's what I thought.
Okay, any other questions, comments? Can I have a motion, please?
Helen, can you make the motion with the specific dates?
Okay, it's not my best thing making motions. Yeah, okay. I move to approve the use of town-owned property for the Wellfleet Oyster Fest on October 15th through October 22nd, 2019, subject to the conditions, if any, as listed on the application form, for a fee of, what is the fee?
$3,000.
$3,000. And also on the condition that SPAT communicate with the conservation department agent, with a conservation agent with regard to the memorial garden. Okay, so that's good.
Second?
All in favor? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Good luck. All right, and next we have the Wellfleet Arbor Committee with some new plans. Okay, yeah. Some new ideas.
I'm Trudy Vermeeren and Sarah Motto and Tim Callis, and we are 3 of the 4 members of the Wellfleet Arbor Committee. As you know, we've come before you for
Gotta speak up.
for a few. Is that better? Oh yeah. I just wanted to kind of update you on a couple of things that we have accomplished over the past few years, just to revisit some of the positive things that have happened. We've been maintaining the flower beds around Town Hall for the past 2 years. And we did a couple of small plantings at the DPW using native plants and with the assistance of the DPW in part to provide mulch. And we were able to get a donation of a tree, a swamp maple, to go in there. We also consulted with the Cemetery Commission with regards to preserving significant trees in a section that they wish to clear, and that's been very successful. And we worked with, we helped with the recreation agent who asked for our assistance in some recommendations for the plantings around the tennis courts. And we think that that looks like it's going to be a pretty successful planting there. And we wanted to revisit, we've been looking at trees that are missing in town, locations where we could possibly plant trees. Of course, everyone's aware that the street tree in front of Town Hall has come down, and that was diseased and necessary. But it's opened up the possibility to plant 1 or 2 trees there on the Town Hall. So we're looking for approval or some input, whether or not you'd be in favor of us revisiting that, of planting 2 shade trees on the Town Hall somewhere near the sidewalk so that it would start to revegetate that area. We are very happy with the work that was done on the trees that are there. It's a big improvement on the way that that area looks. But we still feel like it's kind of bare and could use more. In addition to that, we're also in favor of putting in a couple more benches, something that would be wooden and a little bit more in historic keeping with the Town Hall. And we're open to anything, any input that anyone has, but these are things that are sort of on the backs of in the backs of our minds. And that said, we would also like to put together a list of places where we could plant other trees around town, not necessarily on town property, but some of those locations could be town property. And we do have some funds that we're able to raise to accomplish those plantings. The Town Hall, if it were considered, we would probably be doing fundraising specific to that.
What kind of tree would you plant in front of Town Hall, or trees?
We have a short list. Among those trees would be some type of maple, possibly. We're in favor of American elm, not to be confused with the ones that get diseased. We've kind of veered away a little bit from the honey locust because there was pretty strong misunderstanding of what that tree, that it's not the invasive version of the tree. So we're kind of veering away from that just to avoid any conflict with
Controversy.
Yeah, with confusion. And there were maybe just a couple more, but it's a short list.
Okay. You know, some, with in front of the Memorial Garden, and they cleared that, and I had been speaking before they opened with the designer of it and some other townspeople. I think Jerry was there. Were you there? We were talking about replanting some trees in front of the picket fence at the Memorial Garden, but, you know, that can be discussed too, 1 or 2 trees, because that's really bare suddenly.
Yeah, they have, in their plan, there are, I think, there's a few beeches, which will get huge, and then there's a few shade trees that are behind the fence now, but when they mature, they are going to be pretty significant trees.
Yeah, that's right. Okay.
We were looking across the street at the parking lot from the town-owned parking lot in front of Pres Hall. We were looking, because we've lost at least 2 shade trees there, possibly more. There is a little bit of an issue because of the parking lot and being able to prevent the tree roots from causing a problem. So that was a place that we were considering before.
Yep. Okay, Helen?
A piece of news. I've become aware that there is someone who will be contacting you who wants to donate a tree.
That's great.
Specifically for Town Hall lawn. And, you know, more details to be revealed to WAC. But what came up in their minds, I'm trying to be careful here, you know, to pay for all of it, and they wanted to know if you would be willing to do a lot of planning anything is A, doing it right, and B, really being on it for the first 3 years at least, right?
We are committed to doing
Yeah,
that
and
type of thing.
so they wanted to know, they wanted to be, this is for a WAC meeting. In other words, they wanted to know if you would be amenable to that, and they were really interested in the disease-resistant American elm, which is what we had all along Main Street, for a good part of my life.
Yeah.
No, I thought they were Dutch elm.
They
They were Dutch elm.
No, I know, but we
Yeah.
had elms with that
Right,
habit.
right.
Yeah.
That
But-
habit,
but
the
we have-
high shade.
Right, and a lot of those were lost because of the Dutch elm disease, but
All
there
of them
are
were
better.
lost. All of them
Yes,
on Main
yes, of
Street.
course.
There are very few left in Wellfleet. I've got one in my
Very few
side yard.
left everywhere. Jerry?
How's this going to work with the committee that Jenny Parker is part of?
I'm not aware of the committee.
Well, how are you going to plant trees in Town Hall lawn when the 2 trees that are there right now are going to be saved? They've been cleaned. People love the lights that go on them at the holiday season. I don't want to see any trees planted that's going to block that out.
Well, this is by the sidewalk?
Let her
We're
answer.
looking at specifically trees that would help to provide a shade cover at the sidewalk and street. It would be in front of and not in any way interfering with the growth of the trees that are there.
And they're not going to block them out.
As much as a shade tree would, yes.
I mean, how tall these shade trees?
They would be fully mature trees at probably 60 feet tall.
How tall?
50, 60 feet tall.
Well,
Not
that's
in our
gonna-
lifetimes, but yeah, they would get there, yeah.
Yeah, well,
they-
if they're that tall, they're going to block out the other trees, I would think.
That is possible.
Madam
Well,
Chair.
okay.
Sorry.
All right, Go ahead.
No, you
Go ahead.
go
No,
ahead.
no, go ahead.
Well, Ginny Parker and Roger Putnam spearheaded saving the trees that it turned out the community wanted, and I think we shouldn't make the same mistake, and people obviously care a lot about their town hall, so I think it has to, one way or another, get some community input, at least for that real estate right there. I think that was clear at town meeting, that everybody cares what it looks like.
The only thing that I have to say about that is that the attachment to the tree that was there at the street and the minimal shade it provided was something that was talked about at that meeting. And we all knew, all of you, and most of the town governance knows that that had to come down because of insurance reasons.
Madam Chair, I didn't mean those trees. I meant the 2 evergreens in front of the.
She's not talking about those.
I guess what I'm trying to say is that that tree is gone, and now there is no shade.
Yeah, so you're...
You're talking about a different tree. Well, that tree got no water, right, because of the asphalt.
It was diseased.
But it was also, it wasn't in a good, it's gone now, it doesn't matter. My point being that anything on town lawn, I think, including benches and picking out the trees and so forth, wouldn't be the worst thing to make a presentation in front of town meeting and make sure everybody wants it.
We're not against that either. We're not against that. We're looking for input, yeah. We're not asking for you to stamp this. We're just bringing up the idea that we'd like to be a part of this.
And to clarify, I don't think you're planning on putting a tree like right in the middle and blocking the other 2 trees. You're going to be replacing the diseased tree more or less near the sidewalk or near the road, right? Just to
Yeah,
provide
the
more.
DPW is concerned about that strip there, that
Yeah.
nothing gets
Yeah, by
planted
the
there because
sidewalk.
of
No, but-
plowing and
but
obvious dangers to trucks and traffic.
Yeah, but, so putting it in, but it still wouldn't be, I mean, it's, so in other words, it's not going to block the other trees, but.
I would like to see some
plan.
drawings.
Okay.
As to what that would look like in relationship to the trees that are already there, and the height, width, so on and so forth. I'd like to see some drawings, because Roger Putnam and Jenny's here have worked very hard and raised some money and had an arborist come there and check those trees out. And they've cleared them out. It looks really great, the work that they have done. And I just hate to see anything spoil the view for the people that stand across the street or sit across the street during the holiday season. So I don't know if you guys can work together with that other committee, or maybe you can, maybe you can't, I don't know. But Jenny's here and Roger's here. I'd like to hear from one of them what their point of view is.
Janet?
Well, do you have any comment on it? I guess Jerry does, yeah, he wants your point of view on it, sure.
We'd love to work with you guys. I actually, before Christmas, tried to find Sarah's phone number, to reach out. We had actually talked to the Board of Selectmen about coming and presenting some, we presented some ideas for some benches, and then it got very busy with Christmas, so, I mean, I think there's a lot of great things that could happen there, and again, I'm really just glad we saved the spruces, but I do believe that having community feedback is so important, as we learned the first time, so I'm open to it. I couldn't find your phone number, and then Christmas came, so thanks.
Yeah, so just, okay, I know what you're just looking for a go-ahead, but then to come back with some plans so people know what's going on. Kathleen?
Hi, Arbor Committee. I have a lot to say. Trees are on my Board of Selectmen's goals. Trees. We need more trees. We need more shade canopy. Would you consider imitating Provincetown's plan of memorial trees in your planting of trees around town? I'd love to see a tree for Norma Simon, for example. Let me finish. Couple of other things, and there's been a lot of discussion, so I don't want to hold you guys up. One thought I have is, on the trees, I'd love to see a shade tree come back to that sidewalk where we just lost a tree, and we all knew it was going to happen. It was just a matter of time. Benches, I'd love to see you work with what is now the ad hoc spruce committee, if you will. They had some nice plans for some very nice benches. The thing with benches is I don't want to see them named, because that's in perpetuity. And what we have now down on the harbor front, if you will, are benches, several of which are just in one family. So when we lose a Wellfleet person, there's really no place for us left to go with a bench anymore. But we can do something with regard to a tree for a specific individual. When Preservation Hall was being built, Berta Brunoge had lost her husband, Jake, and she was able to plant a magnolia in his name in that garden. So it's a lovely thought. The other thing I want to bring up, and this has also been on my Board of Selectmen's goals, is the parking area at Bank and Commercial Street that abuts Duck Creek. I see that as an area that's such a wonderful view shed for the town, with maybe at best, on a good day, if everybody does it right, 14 parking spaces. And I'd love to see maybe a bench down there and some shade canopy there as well. We're working with the Masonic Lodge to correct a line discrepancy in the property, but maybe you'd give that some consideration. I commend you for your efforts in volunteering to keep the flower beds around Town Hall, which were just spectacular over the summer months, and they were well watered. I do the boat at the end of East Commercial Street, and I know it's a labor of love. Sometimes during the height of the summer, watering it 2 times a day. So, thank you very much. Those are my comments.
Janet,
Thank
can I
you.
just make
Yes,
one
you
more-
may.
Just a comment. I'm not opposed to trees. I'm not opposed to plants.
We
All
like
I
'em,
care
yeah.
about is that those 2 Christmas trees out there be preserved and have visual sight. That's my big concern.
Yeah.
Okay? Other than that, do what you can. But I do agree with Kathleen. I'd like to see another tree out there and where the other one came down, if it were possible.
Trees are good. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I wanted to say also, every time I went to town hall, the flowers and the flower beds made me so happy.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. It really made a difference. And, you know, there's enough room there so you could have a tree the size of the maple tree that died, because when it had a full crown, it actually did cut out a lot of the view of town hall and everything else behind it. But there's enough room there so you could have a really big tree's root, you know, word,
Root
technical word.
Root zone.
What?
Root ball?
The area for the root, you mean?
Yes,
Yeah.
thank you. There's a technical word, I've forgotten it. But there's enough room for those spruces to have their full skirt of roots. And of course, they touch under the sidewalk. Those 2 spruces are united under the sidewalk. And then to have even 2 trees far enough away, there's enough room on that lawn to have 2 root skirts.
Yeah, may I speak?
Yes, yeah.
I want to make it really clear that we are not looking to railroad anything here. We are still a nonprofit. We did finally get our federal nonprofit status, so we can actually do this and make it very inviting to have people donate to this, where they can write it off completely. We see this as an opportunity to benefit the town. If there is a big opposition, of course, we're not going to pursue it. We don't want to waste any more time on something that people don't want, or people see as an overtaking of what's already there. That said, our goal would be to completely look through the town, see where else we can put street trees to provide shade. This canopy that we used to have over Main Street is being depleted, and it's pretty sad. Even in the winter, I mean, we're missing just that cover over the street, and it's what made Wellfleet, in the springtime when you drive through Wellfleet, that's what you're looking for. It's that feeling of the old town of Wellfleet, and it's inevitable that we've lost these trees, but we may be working a lot with private homeowners to plant a tree. We'll provide the tree and provide assistance, but it's not just the town hall. We're looking at other things too.
Good. That's great. Thank you, as always. Any other comments? Yeah. Mhm. I have full confidence in you, and in Ginny's committee, too. It's great.
Going forward, we will make something a little bit more formal, and we can reach out with Ginny and make a connection there, and come back to you.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank
Thank
you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
See you. So, Autumn Edwards is here, right? Yep. And so we'll talk about the appointment for the local housing partnership. And once again, we have 2 people applying for 1 position. So does the housing partnership have anything to say about that?
Where is this?
I don't know. It's 4A.
Wait a minute, hold on. Sure. Where is it?
What do you want to see? It's just this.
Here it
here.
is, I got it. So we have Ann Suggs.
And Autumn Edwards applying for
Yes.
one
Yes.
position.
So, may I say something when you're ready? Whenever you're ready.
Okay, Sharon, do you want to present something? Did you
Well,
talk,
there's no real
Sharon.
presentation. And
talking to the mic, please?
Yeah.
I'm Sharon Ruhlager, co-chair of the local housing partnership. And, and this is Autumn Edwards, who is an applicant, although we haven't had a chance to talk tonight. I'm not sure of what your plans are at the moment, so maybe you would tell us that first, and that would clarify some things.
So I'm definitely still interested in the board. However, in speaking with Sharon, we were wondering if I should hold off on being appointed for a few months and then just attend meetings. I feel like I do have a lot of that experience coming from the low income to bring. I did recently find out that there is an open position on Housing Authority, though, and I am researching and considering running for that. And so Sharon and I were speaking and decided that perhaps I should wait to see how that goes first.
So it came up, we were talking about you in nice ways. Can you make the meetings of either of those? Because I know Housing Partnership meets 4 o'clock, and when does Housing Authority? They meet like at 10 or something. 9:15. Can you regularly make those meetings? That's always the hard part, or often.
Right. Yes, ma'am. I can take time off of work. I know I was late tonight. I apologize, but that's because Nauset told me that their bus was going to be there at 6, and it wasn't. But otherwise, yes, I can definitely meet.
Okay. Well, that sounds like an easy solution, is that you either wait a few months and get on the Housing Partnership or on the Housing Authority, if they both need somebody. So would that,
So Ann Suggs would be happy to
Yeah.
become a member of the local housing partnership.
okay,
Madam Chair?
let me just, look. Yes,
Autumn, it's a lot of people before they join boards go sit in. It's really fun, and you might want to do that if you can before you apply for the other position. There's a lot of terms and things to learn, and you get sort of used to being in the swing of things. So I would encourage you to consider going to a few meetings. Yes, I definitely will. Thank you. I mean, that's a normal thing for volunteers to do before they're, not everybody does it, but before you're appointed, so you can jump right in. Yeah, I usually jump before I look, so.
all right, so for now, we don't have the, it's not on our agenda to appoint you to the Housing Authority.
We can't.
Right, that's what I just said. It's
No,
not
no,
on
it's
the
an
agenda.
elected, it's elected.
Yeah, I mean, it's not, the whole thing isn't on the agenda.
The
saying.
Housing Authority, we don't appoint to.
Okay.
Yeah, it's an elected position.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
Housing
Oh, that's
Partnership
right.
we appoint.
Jeez, okay. Well, so anyhow, and Ann's not here, so we would just take a motion to appoint Ann Suggs to the Housing Partnership?
I would move that because she is a very known quantity, and whatever some of us may not have known is very well explained on her application. She has an amazing background, and, we're lucky to have 2 good applicants. I move to appoint Ann Suggs to the Local Housing Partnership for a term to expire June 30th, 2019.
Second?
All in favor? Okay, thank you. And yeah, do try to get to meetings, because when you do get finally on the committee, you want to kind of be caught up on the projects and the terminology and everything, so that would be really good. All right, thank you. We'll see you again.
Thank you. Yeah, you should go.
Hi, sweetheart.
Okay, so on to town property, disposition of town property. First, we'll do the one to the Conservation Commission, Commission. Yep. Where are these?
John Kumbler for the Conservation Commission, for the Conservation, for the open spaces.
Oh, okay.
This is what we're talking about, right? The property, the open spaces is asking to go into conservation?
Yes.
Yeah, and which, we got, thank you for coming. It's the first one. Is this sheet number 46?
Right, we have one piece of property, lot 19 on map 46.
Okay.
And then we have 5 on map 40. So
Okay.
let's start with map 46. I'll try to make this quick.
Got it.
The Open Spaces would like the town to transfer the care, custody, management, and control of property, map 46, lot 19. It's town-owned property on the Hatches Creek. We'd like it transferred from the board to the Board of the Conservation Commission for the purpose of open space conservation. This is 5.58 acres, 5 acres, roughly 5.5 acres of wetland property. It's within an area of critical environmental concern. It abuts the Audubon and other conservation property. It's not really buildable, and we feel if it's put into conservation, it'll be monitored and looked after and protected.
Does this remove it from the tax rolls?
It's a town
It's not
property.
because-
It's already town
Oh, yeah.
property.
So all of these are, okay. And all of these parcels they're wetlands, right? So there's nothing that
Mostly,
could
it's
be
not
done?
completely
Not com-
wetlands.
Okay.
But it's mostly wetland. It's not really buildable. I mean, what could
Right.
happen is if an abutter bought it, and they might allow an abutter to build, but
Okay. All
the
right,
property
yeah.
themselves, most of them are border water or are right behind a dune. Well, this particular piece is wetland property. It's fully within the area of critical environmental concern.
Okay, are there any questions or comments from the board? Yes, Helen?
Yeah, my understanding of this extra town stewardship of a piece of land is by handing it to the conscom really turns into its shepherd. You know, you protect it in a way that can fall between the cracks if the town just owns it, you know, and sometimes situations come up, and how does it work? Here's the question, because I realized I don't understand this. So it's under the management, it's owned by the town under the management of the conscom, and somebody on one of these abutting properties has to come to the conscom to ask to do whatever. How does that work?
It's a hearing.
No, I know it's a hearing.
I'm not sure what your question is.
Well, if you are the owner and the steward of it, two different things, really.
Right.
Is there a conflict? How does that work? I'm sure it does work in some way that's legal. It's just I never knew the answer to that. So maybe conscom should know the answer to
Well,
that.
amongst other things, if you put it into conservation, you can't take it out without state approval. That's
No,
one thing that
Are
happens.
you talking about the property owner in conflict? The abutting property owner?
No,
Okay.
no.
I'm unclear, too, of what you're asking.
I'm clarifying something important about this passing of, you know, if town meeting votes for it.
Right.
And let's just have it answered before town meeting, because it's a very good question. What is the legal standing of the owner who is also the shepherd, right? The town, you are the town on the conscom.
Right, right,
You're that part of the town's brain.
right.
And what if an abutter wants to do something right next to you, and you have to have a hearing on it, right? Because it's a wetland. That's an interesting question. We're not going to answer it tonight.
So what
But
you're saying
none
is
of
there may
us
be
know it.
a conflict of interest.
If they recuse themselves?
Well,
Yeah,
they
see,
can't.
you
The
can't. You
conscom
can't.
can't, the whole,
Right.
the
No,
whole.
I know. It was a joke.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Um,
It's just, I'm putting it out there.
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that.
I mean, conscom has stewardship of such properties all over town.
Perhaps KP Law can answer that for you.
No, I think probably Hillary can answer it.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right,
Just as a point of order here, so what, according to your policy, what you're doing now is you're just referring it to all other committees, department heads, and other interested
yeah.
parties. So that's what your role is. I will tell you, I've kind of cheated the process a little bit because I've already done this, so we're just making it official tonight. But I've already sent this to get the process going, to send it to all committees, department heads, for anybody to put comments forth. And I've also put it on the front page of the town's website, so as an attempt to reach other interested parties. So if someone else had a comment that they wanted to provide, they could also do that. Once we're done with that process, then it will go to the planning board, and they'll make a recommendation that'll come back to you then.
Madam Chair?
Yes, Kathleen?
Through you to Mr. Hort, has any comments come back from any of your committees?
I've received one, I'm going to say it was the Board of Assessors that was in favor of everything that's been sent to them, and that's the only one I've received so far. No one is required to provide a comment, other than the planning board. They're required to give their opinion and their comments on it when it then goes to them, so.
Yeah.
Helen, yes?
Yeah, so the only note I made about this is, I looked at the schedule, in the policy, and it's like, eek, like somebody should get on the phone with the chair of the planning board and say, guess what? There's a very tight
Right.
window.
To get this on the town warrant.
Yeah, and
I think that's been,
And your town administrator and assistant town
Yeah.
administrator have already handled
Yeah,
that, to say it's, and the planning board has actually reminded me to remember this needs to come to us before it goes to town meetings. So
Oh, so everybody's aware
Yeah.
of it, because they were complaining last year about last-minute things.
That's,
So,
everybody
So I
learned.
can just finish up the other five pieces of property. This is, again, straightforward. It's Lieutenant Island, it's map 40, parcels 81, 170, 171, 176, and 184. The town owns this tidal and dune property. We'd like it transferred to the Conservation Commission for open space conservation purposes, and we would like the select board to forward this on to the other committees. These are properties which are also within the areas of critical environmental concern. They abut other conservation properties, and the combined properties altogether consists of 2.17 acres of upland and 4.37 acres of lowland. And we would like the town Board of Selectmen to push this on.
Okay. Ms. Chavetta, do you have something you'd like to add?
Yeah, so what I want to make sure, and I'm just diving into this now, thankfully Dan did send this around to all department heads, but properties, parcels 170 and 171, that is right abutting an area, and might even include an area that is used by shell fishermen, both commercial and recreational, to access the flats out to the west and to the south of Lieutenant Island. So by putting it into conservation land, I wouldn't want to then have restrictions where they wouldn't be able to park their vehicles in that lot down the end there, or they wouldn't be able to traverse to get to the water to be able to harvest. I'm concerned about that. And then the other one that I'm not sure about is, I think 178. I believe that's not the parcel that has the way to water, but there are two paths up by the boathouse, and one goes directly kind of northeast, and the other one goes more directly east, and it's a longer one. I'm worried that also, that longer one that goes towards the east might be on parcel 178. And again, I have grant holders that use that. They park in that little parking lot by the boathouse, and they use that to access their grants. It's also an area where they're not allowed to drive in vehicles, so really that is their only way, unless they were to come by Old Wharf Road by boat, to their grants, if that would get closed off. So I'm not sure, I can submit my comments, but I would be very concerned about
My
protecting the way to water for
My
shell fishing
understanding is
activities.
This is not going to interfere with normal access to, shellfish access to their grants.
Ever in perpetuity?
Yes. Dannon can probably.
Speak into the mic, John, please.
Yeah. The question, can you repeat? Yeah, the question that John just said was into the mic?
Okay.
Yeah.
My understanding is this is not going to interfere with shellfishermen getting to their grants.
It does not create any new environmental regulations. The regulations that are enforced by the Conservation Commission are there, and we've been living with it. It's going to continue to live with it. But I would like to correct this lot up in the northeast section here. That's not part of the recommendations. That is a privately owned lot, and
What
it's
number is that?
Is that 178, the really small one up in the corner?
Yes, up in the
Yeah.
corner. I
This
can't
one,
read the number.
right?
Yes.
This
Yeah.
one?
That's,
No,
yeah,
well, you
that's
didn't
not
put-
part of the recommendations that are coming forward.
Also, Janet, through you to...
Well, let's see if Dennis is through, Denny's through, or they.
Denny, are you
Right.
done?
Yeah, actually, 178 isn't on our,
No, it's not one
No.
of
it's
the
not
ones
even
we've asked
listed,
for.
so
Yeah.
it's,
Is it highlighted because they're thinking of giving it?
No?
It's just highlighted by mistake?
What I tried to do is to make it more obvious for everybody is I provided the highlights in there, and I did it based on what the circles were of where the properties were, and that
Oh,
one had a
yeah.
circle around it, so I thought that was intended to be one of
yeah.
them, but apparently it is
Yeah.
not, so.
So
Okay.
I want to make a point, which Mr. Kumbler may be aware of and Nancy is aware of. Like, if you want to use your truck, if you want to access, the resource, you have to get approval from Conscom. It's on your thingamajig, right? There's a little thing on your,
Yeah, these areas are not, the beach is not accessed by trucks, but there's 2 parking areas.
No, I know.
Where people park and then they walk.
so they don't have permission from Conscom because those parking areas are right in the resource, aren't they?
No, they're on the
Right,
inside
abutting.
of the second
Okay, thank you for
island,
clarifying.
and then by the boat, the inside of the
Right.
boathouse. I'm not sure, I just would want to suggest that in perpetuity, these ways to water are maintained for accessing the shellfishing resource.
My feeling is, and I could be corrected, this is more likely to make that the case
Then less.
than leaving it so that, for example, it could be sold to an abutter who could then restrict it. So for the shellfishing community is I would think, would feel that this is a stronger protection for their rights than leaving it. I mean, right now it's town-owned, but the town in the future could say, gee, we got a great deal, the abutter has offered us so much money for land we're not using, and that has happened in the past. And so this
Yeah.
is to the
And then
shellfishing
any
community.
proposed changes would go through the Conservation Commission, and we would be informed, and then shellfishermen could go and participate in the public process of any changes that would happen.
yeah. But anyhow, submit your concerns to the planning board, and you have to us, but submit them, and then everybody can look at them and see them and weigh in on them.
This is also between private individuals, often dealt with by an easement, and there may be there's people here that know more about that than I do, but then we could also look at formalizing it. Formalizing that.
For access? Or
Yeah.
For parking?
Easements for the shellfishermen, yeah, of some sort, formalizing the legal rights they have to walk, to do what they do on the land. Nancy, I'm saying that also part of the process, we could possibly look at formalizing those rights, putting an easement in, putting it into some sort of legal language.
Okay, so may I have no other questions, right? Can I have a motion on, 2 different motions on B and C?
I move to refer the possible disposition of town-owned property as shown on the assessor's map 46, parcel 19, and map 40 has parcels 81, 170, 171, 176, and 184.
A second, all in favor?
I had a question, but I guess I didn't.
Okay,
My
go ahead.
question was, this has to go to the, ultimately to the planning board,
Right.
all right? And then they come back with a recommendation to us.
For town
Right.
meeting.
So why are we voting this now? Why don't we
We're-
vote it with the
We're-
recommendation?
We're voting to refer it to the other, to
You
the
have-
other
We have to
committees.
vote to refer it to
Yes,
the
we
planning?
do. It's in our policy.
Yeah.
Policy.
So did we vote? We all did in favor,
Yes.
and then he said it. Okay.
Did we vote?
I believe,
Yeah, we did, and then in the middle of our vote, Jerry questioned.
Yeah,
So
right.
we're at 5-4, right? We're all for it.
It's,
Okay, moving on to C, the disposition of town-owned property. This is to the Housing Authority. Actually, Sharon, yeah, why don't you, and Richard, why don't you maybe, you can come up to the table and just answer if there's any questions and kind of give a brief description of what this is for?
Good evening. My name is Richard Ciotti. I'm on the Wellfleet Housing Authority. This is about a parcel commonly referred to as 95 Lawrence Road. That's the one we're talking about now. I think you have two pieces. Last year at town meeting, there was a sense of town meeting that this could be a possible site for affordable housing, and that should at least be explored. During the course of the year, we have joined with Mass Housing Partnership to do a feasibility study of the parcels of land across from the elementary school, known as 95 Lawrence Road, to decide what's feasible there. And we have gotten a feasibility study from Laura Schufeld from Coastal Engineering that indicates that indeed there is a possibility of building some housing there. Recently, several of you attended the presentation at a joint meeting of the Housing Authority and the Local Housing Partnership by Laura as to, you know, what the process is here for going forward. Nothing can happen unless and until this particular property gets transferred to the Wellfleet Housing Authority. Now, I say that in terms of any substantive steps that can be taken to do anything. What can happen is there can be the process starting with the business you're going to do now, and that's referring it to committees for examination and reaction and that. And other kind of community outreach to begin to discuss what the possibilities are here. So what we're here to do is to, I guess as a practical matter, is to ask you to forward this, even though I think Dan has already done that, to the committees for their reaction and response to the transfer of this land to the Wellfleet Housing Authority. Now, I don't know that I can stop there. I don't know if you have any other questions that you want to ask about the process beyond that.
Kathleen, you were at the meeting, right? Yes, Kathleen and I were there. We've been to lots of meetings together, so I'm remembering your questions. You were there and I was there. And Laura Schufelt is amazing. And the only key thing that needs to be highlighted in sending it out to boards and committees is that they understand that by giving it to the Housing Authority, they're not taking it away from the town. There's another step which came up during that meeting that was very critical to me, in my opinion, which is we don't have to then give the property to a developer. We can lease it. And there's a big difference. But in both cases, the housing authority has to be granted the ability to do that. And we've done this again and again in the past. It's normal.
Correct. I mean, that was duly noted, and that's one of those things that would be part of the request for proposal that would
RFPs.
take a great period of time to develop before anything goes to any, out for proposals.
Yeah. Justina?
Well, I was at the meeting, Helen, that you referred to, and then we were together at that CDP, and I think it was pretty loud about how I feel. But I do have concern. Well, first of all, I think it can be very exciting for Wellfleet to build a affordable housing project on that land, and I recognize all the hard work that your group is doing. I am concerned that the timeline's going to be rushed, and I think when we say nothing can be done till the land's transferred, maybe the stumbling block might be semantics, because I would be looking for some of, at least of a list of the rough ideas into the RFP, and at some point being able to say something about how many units we might get and what the mixes might look like, because we have some preliminary thoughts, I'm sure, because I think that if we hand the land over to the housing authority, because of the unique location near the school, there are other town uses that, maybe they're on the would also be nice list, like enough parking, some parking spaces for the overflow for town meeting, and, ball fields, other things. It's not kind of down a dirt road. It has a unique location near the school. And I would be looking to get some rough idea of what we're getting. I heard the number 27 units, and I assume this isn't 100% affordable. In a recent project in Truro, they were 25% at market rate, 50% workforce, 25% low income, which back of the envelope that we'd hand over the land to get 18 units of affordable housing. So I think those kinds of preliminary ideas are necessary to discuss when we're not going to get that land back, and we're going to give up some things we could use for. So we want to know what we're getting, what the community gets for that, and I think town meeting will want to know things like that. So that's all I meant by saying, the process seems rough, and we've got to hear something, that we might be getting.
So that's just bringing up a thought in reference to town meeting. So by town meeting, do we have to transfer, have the deed and everything transferred? We don't have to have it done by town meeting?
No,
Okay.
town meeting has to actually authorize you
We'd have to
transfer
approve
the deed,
it.
So,
Yeah. What was the other question I had about that? Okay. Yeah, because the timeline gets shortened. Okay.
I just want to reiterate that just because the land would be transferred with your, the preliminary, this step, that doesn't mean that the town has no say over what happens on that piece of property. It has continuing and great input. And if any portion of the property is not needed, it will be returned to town. So it's, it's by transferring the land to the housing authority, it does not give the housing authority any decision, any power to make decisions about it. That's the town.
Are there any questions from the audience? Yeah, one, okay. Kathleen, okay.
I've been attending a lot of the housing meetings, and I'm thrilled with the results of the feasibility study. But what I don't want to see happen here is we start nickel and diming this project before we get an RFP. This is starting the process of having the other boards and committees look at our feasibility study and take it from there. Ultimately, the voters of Wellfleet will decide, how this shakes out. And again, I want to thank you both for all that you've done, particularly you, Richard, because I think we sat in our first housing class together, and you've just gone nuclear with this, so thank you.
I don't go nuclear with much anymore.
I know. I was going to say nuclear.
I'll tell you that right now.
Okay.
I want to respond. Justina, I know you are not comfortable with this process. It doesn't play out the way you usually think things should.
I did keep that secret.
No, I think that we have to face, it's just like the document that you have there that's going to be the buzzword out there now, these 90 units, 90 bedrooms.
Yeah.
But I'm thinking, there are people who can think, my God, 90 stories, 1 bedroom per, that's, it's not what we're talking about. I think the feasibility studies set some boundaries, is what it does. It doesn't set a target. It doesn't set a requirement. It doesn't do any of those things. It just said there are possibilities here. The development, from what I understand from Laura, the development of the RFP, that thing which will go out to the developers, is a long time in coming, and great care has to be taken with it, because the more care that's taken with it, the greater the likelihood you will get something back that you can live with and that fits. So that being said, it's still not, you still don't have enough, so to speak, to go with before that process starts. So it is the town trusting, in a sense, that, the housing authority will put the time and the energy and the effort into getting together an RFP that they are fully conversant with, or at least have the opportunity to be fully conversant.
Well, this is good, because I was thinking that you had to have the RFP and everything by this town meeting to get it approved. That's why I was thinking you're crazy the other day going, good. 2 meetings is always good on this. So for town meeting, just so people know, for the audience at home knows, that this is, we again are voting, the Board of Selectmen will move to refer this to the other select people. I know, I caught myself, but only mentally. Suzanne, now you distracted me. But it is just to refer this to the other committees to have input. And those, and then the planning board will look at it. So is everybody clear on that?
Mm-hmm.
Any questions from the audience, Mr. Kumbler?
I think it's important to understand, and we've said this, but I'm going to say it again. It's the state that tells us we can't go anywhere until the land goes to the housing authority.
Yeah.
That's
they have to own it. Yeah,
that's
they
tied
have to.
our hands, so we can't really move forward until that happens. Once that happens, we can get access to money to start building our criteria and
Plans,
what
yeah.
we can't specify exactly, because the people who bid on have to have some flexibility, but we can define the parameters of what we want. The two other things that we're all aware of, but I just want to emphasize. One is, we don't have very much town land for anything, and very little for housing. This is one piece of property we have that can be used for housing, and there's different funding sort of sources depending on how many units you put in. But one of the very important things to keep in mind is if we can get in, say, 26 or 28 units, we can also have a resident manager on site, which will make a great deal of difference in terms of how the whole process is maintained down the line.
Yeah.
So if we try to cut back now, what we may end up is a project that not only provides us with less housing, but with a housing situation that's less desirable for the town in the long run. And the last point I want to make, which I guess we all know, is we have such a crisis for housing right now. I mean, it's not global warming, but it is a big crisis in this town. We are about the worst on the Cape, if not the worst on the Cape, but one of the worst in the state. And this will make a difference, a significant difference. And I just want us, I hate to see us wait another year for it to come before town meeting to then begin the process, because it's a long haul we have in front of us. Let's start it as soon as we possibly can. So I urge you to send this on.
Thank you. Yes, David.
I want to support pretty much everything John just said, for starters. I just think that the climate, to me, trumps everything else, but housing is right behind that. And we all know how important it is. It's embarrassing to everyone in the town, really, it should be, that we haven't done more. And I just support going for the maximum possible number of bedrooms. The units can be figured out. And to be specific, if we can responsibly, going through all the planning, put in 90 bedrooms in whatever number of units, I think we should go for the absolute maximum. We're still not going to be where we need to be in affordable housing in the town, and there are precious few alternatives for that. And then lastly, just this is way premature for you guys, I'm going to tell you anyway. There's a way to bring climate change and housing together, and that is otherwise called green affordable housing. The benefits are significant, and I'll just tell you there are 4 basic ones in my view. First of all, if you do a zero or low emission development, you are reducing carbon emissions.
Point of order? Forgive
Okay,
me,
yeah,
respectfully. This is very interesting. It's not on our agenda.
I'm not-
No. This is really interesting, and this is exactly what we will need to know in the next step. I'm not trying to cut you off, but we are only talking about sending it along,
I
not
understand that.
the issue of adding green construction, which I completely support.
Okay, I understand that, and if you'd like me to stop right now, I will.
Yeah, there'll be plenty of time for these presentations and meetings to
Okay.
encourage it. But Helen's right, we're just talking about referring to it now. So any other comments from the audience? We also have 2 other properties. Anybody want to talk about them now? Any questions on that?
They're on Freeman Ave? Freeman Ave?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I will say that about 8 years ago, when I was on the planning board, we looked at these properties and, what, were you going to say something? Okay, all right, I didn't see you, so.
It's about this and the next 2.
Okay, well, we're on the next 2 now. But anyhow, we did look at them, and even back then, we thought they were a good idea. So I'll open it up to the board to have any comments or
You're
questions
talking about the
that.
2 lots that on Chequesset Neck Road or
Yeah,
off
off of it, yeah, right off of it.
Well, I went out and looked at them. One of them, I think, could be buildable. And there's another one that's right at the edge of Duck Creek. I walked in, it's a wetland. A lot of it's wet, and that's just should not happen to build on a piece of property that's a wetland. And there's the other one that's back up. I think you could possibly build on that one. And also, I'd hate to see that road close off that goes right into the trailer park. A lot of people use that road, they walk it. So if someone were to build in that one lot, I would hope that road would not be closed off, because people walk from the trailer park into town to do a little minor shopping or whatever, and they walk back. So I wouldn't want to see that road closed. But also, it's a wetland. You can't build on a wetland.
So Jerry, just to clarify, are you talking about, do you have the map in front of you? Are you talking about there's a pathway through or Wellfleet Street that runs along the wetland? And are you talking about closing that off? Because that wouldn't be closed off.
Are you talking about this lot?
Yeah.
It's wet. That's wet.
Yeah, it's
yes.
right at the
Right.
tip of Duck Creek there.
Yeah.
Yep, so it's over 3/4 of an acre, just barely. But you could do the setback, and you would do the setback not on the wetland. The wetland would have to remain, and the setback would have to remain.
The road, you stop at the road.
Well,
you
which
walk
road are you
right.
talking about?
Are you talking, wait, can you show me so I can show
Yeah,
Janet?
this one.
So you mean where this little line is here?
Yeah, there's a road that goes back to the
Okay,
trailer park.
so that may be a road, but actually this is a subdivision, so people may be using it and, that's arguably a good thing, but it's not a legal road, because this is a subdivision, and so
This-
all
what-
these,
What subdivision are we talking about?
this is all a
That's
subdivision.
a sub, has nothing to do with that
Oh,
road
yeah,
there.
this is a lot in the subdivision.
That's not a lot, I don't, this
Okay.
is not a lot
Well,
in that subdivision.
So anyhow, just to get back to what we're doing tonight, I know that the planning board has looked at this, the housing has looked at it. There's no decisions made on what, of any kind of a design. I think that we'll have to clarify. We can send it to the other committees with that comment of yours of, is it going to be cutting off a road? We need clarification, because I didn't think this road, this is just a pathway, I've been back there, but clarification on that.
Well, I would hope that you would all go out and look
Yeah.
at it and walk it.
And we can send our comments, or actually, it's going to come back to us for comments, too. And the planning board will come back to us, or will come to one of our meetings and discuss all this. So that's a good point. I'll go out and look at it again. I didn't think it was cutting off any road, and I think there's space, so it's not on the wetland. Of course, wetlands take priority. There's always have to be setbacks and things.
Janet, I'm not as conversant with this because Elaine had been
Working with Alfred.
working with Alfred on this. And it's my understanding right now that the Housing Authority has a request out for David LaJoy to do some kind of a study on
Okay,
this.
all right,
To bring,
yeah.
bring more practical information back to us as to what is or is not possible here. And we do not have that yet. He's a little bit delayed or behind in projects, but we're
Yeah.
investigating that.
Yeah,
Janet?
yes.
Yeah, this is going to land on Conscom's table, okay? And consider not getting Dave LaJoy and paying him until it lands on Conscom's table, because Conscom will say, hey, guys, this is a wetland, and I think Jerry's right. I actually didn't get out of the car, so I'm bad. And when planning board looks at it, or the housing authority looks at it, they can go to Nancy Vale's office and you'll see, I think that it's a part of a subdivision. So, you can clarify a lot of this without Mr. LaJoy, bless his heart.
Right.
But if it's a wetland,
Yeah, you're not going to build on it.
yeah,
Excuse me.
The rain.
well,
It's a wet year. Any other questions or comments? So, any questions, comments from the audience? Yes. Actually, John, you've already spoken for a moment. We'll let Michael go. You'll be up again. Oh, and then Nancy wants to say something. Okay.
In the past, when I was on the Board of Selectmen, these two properties came to the board at that time. We did reject them. They were environmentally concerned to the Mayo Creek ecosystem in there. The town spent thousands and thousands of dollars to protect that whole area of wetlands. These two are within the inside of those wetlands. We did not want anything happen to Mayo Creek because it affects the Wellfleet shellfish industry. If Mayo Creek gets more polluted, the whole harbor gets shut down. Then you won't need affordable housing because no one will have a job around here. So it was
point, yeah.
rejected by the selectmen way back
Okay.
when. And I hope
Good
you
to
guys
know.
reject it from sending it on again. Thank you.
Good, thanks. Nancy?
So I just had similar concerns to Jerry, that this, especially 119, is wetlands. Half of the lot looks like wetlands. And for what Michael said, this Mayo Creek, I hope
Yeah.
that the Mayo Creek Restoration Committee will also be consulted on this, because they're talking about opening up that tidal flush, and these properties seem pretty close to Mayo Creek, and so I'm just concerned. Again, I'm just bringing it up as a concern and hoping that all the different committees will weigh in on it. Because I love affordable housing. I just want to make sure that we're not putting more septic systems
Yeah.
where it could compromise the bigger picture,
Agreed.
especially
I
with sea
think
level rise.
Everyone would agree with that.
Janet?
And legally, they have to agree with it, too. Yes, Kathleen?
In view of this information, Michael, and thank you for bringing that to my attention, I'm willing to shelve this, for what it's worth, 2 units of housing that may or may not get approval for septic. I'm willing to shelve this and not move this forward to any other committee or board at this particular time. If the chairman of my board here and the other members feel the same way, we can just move to cancel this one out, or whatever Mr. Hort feels is the way to go.
Well, I think, again, that this is not us deciding what can be done, what should be done. We are simply referring it to all the other committees, which would be the Board of Health, the CONSCOM, Planning Board, ZBA. No? They,
Right now,
We
not
have
to
to
move
vote,
it.
so we can vote not to do it.
Janet?
All right, Helen, what were you going to say? And then I'll let Mr. Cumber go. Yeah, you go up, John. You had your hand up first.
First off, my understanding is the reason it was rejected last time is did not have access to water. We now have access to town water. We'll have access, the upland lot will have access to town water. So we're not in the same situation as we were before, where we needed the same
Setbacks.
amount of space. The second thing is, there is restrictions on what we can do that are deal with the wetlands, but the upland lot is not in the wetlands, and it's far enough from the wetlands that it should not be an issue. The issue of septics, this is a concern about this whole town. It's not the concern of one lot. There are alternative septic systems that are nitrate removal systems that are available, that when this comes before the Board of Health and or Conservation, that we can mandate that it have a alternative septic system that doesn't leach nitrates into the water system. There are several of these systems available. We have in the past required them for housing that's close to wetlands. We certainly can require it for this piece of property. But I think to say no, not even to refer it on, when we have an opportunity, we're not solving the housing situation, but we are offering the opportunity, if it meets the engineering requirements, to at least get a habitat-like house, another habitat house in Wellfleet. I don't think you should shut it off without thoroughly investigating it.
Helen?
I have a solution. As I said, I did a kind of inadequate site visit. I didn't get out of the car. I would like to bump, this has already been sent along, but I would like to bump voting on the upland one, the 5.7 acres one, until our next meeting, so that we can all just go over there and take a look at it. And, I wish I'd done a better job, because anytime we're making a decision about that kind of land, we should actually look at it.
I have, but yeah.
Yeah, but you have, and I have sort of, but not well enough. And I only looked at the lower one. I really don't think I'd want to send the lower one around to address Mr. Parlante's concerns. I am very aware that the Board of Health would absolutely have to, do an alternative system there. But that said, Can we just wait on this, and,
Make a motion.
yeah, and not send the,
Does
yeah.
anyone have any other comments or questions? Okay, anyone from the audience? Richard, you want?
I have your vote. I just want to make a comment when you're finished. This just illustrates the point of the problem the Housing Authority has in finding town land to do anything with.
We all know,
I know, it's
we
just,
all know.
it's right
yeah.
in front of us.
Janet.
Jerry?
Yeah, the upland lot, I don't have a problem with. The lower lot is wetland. We should never build on a wetland. I don't care if
True.
you have an alternative septic system or not. You should never build on a wetland. It's right at the water there if you build that house. You
Yeah,
can,
well,
you can
again,
have a
yeah.
deck and go out and set at the water. It just shouldn't happen.
Okay, so can we just do no action on this item? And the next meeting, we will all have, I hope, taken a gander at Assessor's Map 14, Parcel 112, which is the one that's a little farther up, okay? And we could, then do that vote then. How does that grab everybody?
Yeah, it's fine. I
Let's
mean,
do that.
It's not
No
gonna
action.
get-
Yeah, just wait on
okay.
it. Okay, is that okay? So we can have it on the next agenda?
My only comment would be, is you're not taking any action anyway, other than just to ask committees to weigh in
Yeah.
and say, what's your opinion on
As far as
this?
letting it go.
And I would hope and expect that conservation would weigh in at that point and say, if they're in agreement with what was said here, we don't agree with this parcel, we
Okay.
believe it's in a wetland, so.
Fair enough.
You're just sending it to get
Okay, but
input.
I'm not touching 119. Because
So why
it
don't,
is
so,
wet.
okay, so let's.
I move to refer the possible disposition of town, oh, wait, so,
We can just postpone it. We can have, it's been sent. Other committees are no, we'll just come back with it
thank you.
All right,
when
can
we
we
hear
make
from
a
them.
second motion to this?
No, let's just do no action, she's right.
No, for 95 Lawrence Road,
Yeah.
Oh,
yes.
we
map
didn't do that?
13. No, we haven't done that yet.
Okay, you do that.
So.
I move to refer the possible disposition of town-owned property as shown on the assessor's map 13, parcel 2 and 1, to all committees, boards, departments, and other potentially interested parties.
Second.
All in favor? Okay, it's complete. Okay, good, thank you.
Thank you.
And now we move on to the charge for the Wellfleet Dredging Task Force. This is pretty cut and dried. Any questions about it?
Question?
Mm-hmm.
Two things, so there's no term limit. Who is the drafter? Mr. Hort?
That would be correct.
Okay, so what do you think about a term limit in there? Or, 3-year, overlapping 3-year terms, or what do you want?
I would suggest that would be right.
Okay.
That would be good.
I'm going to put not up to 2 alternates, I'm going to say 2 alternates, because remember, we don't have to appoint alternates, right? So 5 members and 2 alternates, with, to serve for overlapping,
With overlapping term limits of up to 3 years?
yeah, with overlapping term.
Sorry, not using the word
Terms.
limits, because there isn't a limit.
All right,
It's just
and
the
so.
term.
Terms.
To serve for,
For 3 years.
3 years.
Okay.
Okay.
And
Good. You
then
wanna
I
make-
had a question.
Okay.
There's a very hairy verb in here, and that is manage. What does that mean? Now, we know they can't approve contracts because that's us. We are the deciders on contracts in terms of voting on them. But what does manage mean here?
So manage means that for the rest of all of our lives and the harbor's lives, and the task force has some ideas, but that there will be regular oversight. There will be somebody actually managing the dredging.
Making decisions?
Yeah.
Yeah, sort of like water commissioners for the municipal water
exactly.
system. Okay,
Yeah.
I get it. you know?
Yeah,
What does it mean? Right.
yeah.
Um,
So the first motion is to move to create a dredging task force with 5 members and up to 2 alternates to serve with overlapping terms of 3 years. Then the second motion would be to charge, so it's the charge that you're giving the dredging task force, shall be as follows: to pursue and manage dredging of the federal channel with the federal government and all other possible means. And then the second one is to pursue, the second charge is to pursue and manage dredging of the harbor and inner harbor in cooperation with the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, Barnstable County, and the Cape Cod Commission, along with funding, and to develop and implement an ongoing maintenance dredging plan for the Wellfleet Harbor. So that's what the managed part consists of. And that there would be oversight, and Dan Hort.
Along with the chair.
Yeah, that's true, that's right, that's right. Oh, that's right, I put the word manager,
You did.
didn't I? So in other words, I want somebody, aside from pursuing, we need someone to keep going. We need management.
Yeah. And through you?
Yes.
So anytime the town meeting or, the select board thinks up or the state requires there to be a group that's going to work on things, they have to do it under open meeting laws, they have to keep minutes, this is all good. And also, it's a kind of commitment, it's like a marriage, you actually go into town hall and raise your hand. But the other thing is, this group, and there should be language that we appointed by the select board should be in here, so it's clear where that's coming from. It isn't just by default. We get to vet who applies to it, which is good. You get to see what their qualifications are and stuff. And then we get to applaud them. Right? We get to,
Yeah,
it's like,
because work has already started, so yeah.
Volunteers.
Well, not
Can't
necessarily
hear you.
volunteers. Oh, yeah, you
They're
have to
gonna
go to
get
the
paid?
microphone.
Yeah, I'm
They're going to
sorry.
get paid?
Well, this has just all been kind of open discussion. So there's going to
And I
be,
apologize.
there's going to be more oversight and more management with, it's through the harbor master, it's through the marina, but that somebody, because it has been such, it's a huge job.
I understand that.
Yeah.
I understand
And so, there's our ideas of actually hiring an employee, a new employee, things like that, but I'm not going to get into that tonight. It's just
Okay.
a charge to get them
We're not outsourcing the
going.
management of the
No.
dredging to any outside organization and
Well-
nonprofit government organization. This is going to be managed by the town in conjunction with the Commonwealth and the Cape Cod Commission.
So I'm not
curious
sure what
about
you're
that
referring to,
language.
but there is like the Army Corps of Engineering, there's
Mm-hmm.
Bourne Consulting, so yes, there are other entities, but so,
I guess I want to make sure
That
that
may-
we're not
that would be
forming
consultants.
alliances with any type of non-government organizations and relinquishing any of the power of the town of Wellfleet. That's
yeah, I don't,
in the management. I'm naive, but I'm astute enough to just, the word manage, I'd like,
who would want to manage the harbor?
I'm not quite sure.
Can I-
I'm curious about that
Yeah.
word, and I just raised the issue because it sits a little
Okay.
curious with me. That's all.
All right, Jerry?
Yeah, isn't there a management plan already for the harbor?
Mm-hmm.
We have permits to do the dredging, that's all taken care of.
Yes.
The harbor master, as far as I know, hasn't signed off on this. Have we ever?
He's on the task force
Well,
yeah.
Has he asked to be on a task force? Has he asked to come in here and tell us that he would like that?
Yes,
I'd like
we-
to know
we-
about his management plan that they already have and all the permits that they have. So what are we doing? Are we doing something once again that overlaps something else?
No, it's creating, it's not overlapping, so the harbor master and the assistant harbor master have been coming to all the dredging meetings for the past 3 years that I'm aware of. He is also suggesting that there's a dredging department. I don't know if it's going to be a department head. We have to, this was all just talked about yesterday, where what do we really need to see this through? So yes, we would love it if the federal government came in and said, okay, here's $10 million, $12 million, and the Army Corps of Engineering is going to take care of everything, but that isn't happening. And so we want somebody with authority and the aid of authority to start managing this, and not only just now, but also for 5, 10, 20, 50 years down the line,
You mean when we're not here?
when we're not here. Yeah.
Speak for
As a matter of fact, once dredging's done, I'm out of here.
Ah.
It is such a huge job. It's so big. So yes, no.
Well, it's just
so
gonna talk-
Mike is on board. DPW's on board.
Okay, good.
I mean, this has been, yeah,
Well, that's one of the things I had on
Yeah.
my sheet over here.
yeah.
But I just wanted to be clear that we weren't, because I haven't been to those, because some of us have to work during the day,
Yes,
you know.
and Dennis Murphy, our past chair of the select board, is on the
Well,
the
Dennis will be
committee.
leaving at the end of the month, and he'll be gone for 6 weeks, so.
He's actually doing homework while he's gone. He has been tasked to
Really?
use the phone and call all these dredging companies, and we may be, I mean, I don't know if I can talk about this. This was open meeting, so I can talk about
It's
it.
not on the agenda, Janet.
Yeah, so we're just doing the task, but there
Okay.
has been, we've actually made progress.
Good, well, thank you for
There's some
bringing me up
steps. So
to date.
next meeting.
Be good if some of us that work during the day would be brought up to date a little better
Yeah, yeah.
than
Well,
we have been.
Well, so that we have to form the task force.
Yeah.
Before it was the dredging
Well,
committee.
we got to be
Now we're
very
forming-
careful who we put on it.
We will be.
And I'm assuming, given what's already been said and just the way things normally work, that the staff support is going to be the harbor master.
Yes.
In other words, in the same way, I don't believe there's a charge on the Shellfish Committee that, the Shellfish Constable is staff support, or that Hillary Lemus Greenberg is staff support for CONSCOM and stuff, but they show up. So this doesn't
Yeah.
happen without them, but
Well,
we
actually,
need.
yeah, and Nancy, the shellfish will be a liaison. I mean, she's been coming to all the dredging meetings.
So-
Michelle was on the dredging committee, she's been coming, so, no, it's now where we've been waiting for funding, and now we don't want to wait for funding. We want to start looking at other possibilities.
2 months ago.
Yeah.
Well, we talked about it too, like 4 months ago and then 2 months ago.
Nobody
Yeah.
talked about it. Todd brought up doing the funding for Wellfleet on its own.
Oh, I know, yes, you did, but you didn't talk about the federal channel. That's the tricky part. Okay, I thought you were referring to the federal channel is going to be tricky.
So the idea behind what is in front of you now is, prior to this, we've had an informal dredging
Ad hoc.
task force that would get together and meet and talk about this. And we decided that we needed a more formalized committee that would meet and manage this program from beginning to end.
Well,
The committee will most likely, if you decide to appoint this committee and create this committee, they will most likely meet in the evening so that most people are able to attend. We've got a couple of applications from people who are already interested in being on this committee. One of them, who I sent to Janet, used to work on dredging projects. So it's those type of people that we want to bring in here. And when we talk about managing the project, it's much the way the Marina Advisory Board works with the Harbor Master, or the Shellfish Advisory Board works with the Shellfish Constable. We want this committee to work with whoever's going to be overseeing it for the town, whether that be the Harbor Master's office, whether that be DPW, but we want somebody to help them manage the project. And we're starting, nothing is written in stone yet, but we are starting to look at it and say, we may not be able to rely on the federal government to dredge the channel. They may come through for it next year, but what if they don't come through for 5 years? We can't wait that long. So we're trying to be more proactive, so.
So,
Preaching to the
so,
choir?
yeah, so the task force is looking into buying equipment versus leasing equipment.
Again, it's not on the agenda, Jan.
Yeah, so let it go at that.
So,
So we're
Janet-
just,
3.5 months, I'll be available.
you're gonna run
Yeah.
the dredger, the crane?
He
You
could be on
can't
the
serve
task
for,
force.
yeah, you can't
Oh,
serve for 30
okay.
days after, but
Yeah.
then you're available.
Okay.
I
good
fixed
to
the
know.
motion.
Ginny has a
Just one last
question.
question.
Okay.
When would I ask that it be televised, like our parking task forces? Can
Say that again, I didn't
we
hear.
make sure that these are televised? Like our
Yeah,
parking
you
task
know, the
force?
problem with televising is that we also need someone to televise, so I'm
Well, I
not
know,
gonna make
I mean,
any
I'm
proper
parking task force.
promise.
I think
Yeah.
this is equally as important to the community.
It's more
to know what's
important.
happening, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, this is good.
I'm not trying to be difficult.
Wait a
I
minute.
know.
But I think this is going to be a very important,
It is.
Yeah.
It is. We agree. That's why we're
everybody.
doing the task force and yeah. So it will all be, I'm being vague because it's not on the agenda,
all right.
but I'm being vague because we are working towards presenting a plan for town meeting,
Okay,
okay?
all right.
So I fixed the motion.
Okay,
Can I make it?
if I like it, yes.
I move to create a dredging task force to be appointed by the Select Board with 5 members and 2 alternates, comma, to serve overlapping terms of 3 years.
Okay, that's the first motion. May I have a second?
Well, no, we have to vote on
We
the
can do,
first
we can do them
one. I
separately.
would really rather not.
All right,
Second?
go ahead.
Yeah, was there a second?
I did second it.
Okay, so?
So do you want to do the second motion? Is that what you
No,
said?
I want to vote on the first one,
All right,
because
never
we
mind, I
can't.
misunderstood you.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
all in favor of the first motion?
Yeah,
Good.
okay.
Thank
So
you.
the second one just needed something at the beginning, because
Okay,
it's a charge.
just read it out.
So I move that the charge for the dredging task force shall be as follows. The dredging task force shall, 1, pursue and manage dredging of the federal channel with the federal government and all other possible means. 2, pursue and manage dredging of the harbor and inner harbor in cooperation with the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, Barnstable County, and the Cape Cod Commission, along with
Obtaining funding.
thank you. Hold that thought, I'm writing it in. Obtaining funding. 3, develop and implement an ongoing maintenance dredging plan for Wellfleet Harbor.
Second?
All in favor? Okay, thank you. All right. So right of entry for the Army Corps of Engineer. Any questions on that?
Aren't they done yet?
I guess not.
You know what, I just got an email today, which to me sounded like they were done because it was a draft of the final report.
Oh, good.
However, I was asked to renew this extension, so I would go ahead and renew it, but they should be done fairly soon, and they may already be done based on the email that I got today, so.
Okay.
Oh, Madam Chair, through you to Mr. Hort, when did you get the request for this extension?
In December.
Because it's conceivable they are done.
It's very possible.
Okay.
Yeah.
You still want to go through with the?
I would go through with it just so we have it.
Okay.
And if we don't need it, we're
Gotcha.
fine.
Madam Chair, I can make the motion?
Okay.
I move to renew the access privileges at former Camp Wellfleet to the Army Corps of Engineers for an additional 1-year period, and to authorize the Select Board Chair to sign that authorization.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Okay. Approval of Select Board report in the 2018 annual report. Any questions or comments about that?
I had one addition. It's beautiful, but in the list of bullets, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, approved plan for caring for town hall trees to be implemented by a group of private citizens? Because this reads a little bit like the town might be doing.
Well, it does say approved volunteer plan.
It says volunteer.
Yes, but that is often used to apply for special municipal employees, so that's the only reason I put that down. I think it's a good
All right.
piece of information. I think
Okay.
I think we gave them, they were great to come forward, and they should be,
So what's your addition?
It's just approved plan for caring for town hall trees to be implemented by.
That was implemented.
No, the plan is going forward.
Yeah,
They're
but
going to
this
keep
is the
doing.
annual
Well, this
report
is
for
the annual report.
2018. That was implemented by,
That was implemented by a group of private citizens.
okay.
Is that okay?
Mm-hmm. Okay. Any other additions or corrections? All right, hearing none, may I have a motion?
I move to approve the Select Board 2018 Annual Report submission as presented with one amendment, and that was with regard to the volunteer plan for caring for town hall trees by a group of private citizens.
Second.
All in favor? All right, thank you. And moving on to minutes.
Town administrators.
There we
No,
go.
there's the town.
Yep, town
yeah.
administrators report. Any questions, comments?
Thank you.
Helen?
Thank you.
Helen says thank you. Kathleen?
Madam Chair, through you to Mr. Hort, on December 19th, the Wellfleet Employees Association, where are we at?
So the Town Hall Finance Department reorganization has been completed. That's been done. They have withdrawn their complaint from the Division of Labor with the state of Massachusetts. And as part of that, I said, let's sit down and let's talk and let's compare, let's look at all of the positions within the union and make sure that we're treating people equally and fairly. So that what we're doing is we're going through and grouping certain positions that do similar work and trying to make sure that we're paying them appropriate and comparable compensation. So it's kind of a preliminary amount of work that we're doing prior. Their contract doesn't renew until next year for negotiations, but it's just kind of talking to them and saying, help me do this, help me, I want to make sure everybody's paid fairly, help me work through this. And so we've been meeting on a regular basis to do that.
Perfect.
Thank you, Mr.
Good.
Hort.
Sure.
That's always a good idea. Yes, Jerry?
I don't know if this should be for future agenda or I have just some questions for the town administrator.
Talking to your mic.
Oh.
It depends.
Bid. How are you working out with the fire chief for an article on this EMT thing?
You know what, he and I haven't talked recently because he's been out sick with the flu, but we're going to try and bring something forward to town meeting.
Town meeting?
Yeah.
Okay, and what's with the news dealer?
Nothing heard back from on that yet.
Well, you're not
so-
going to hear, so are we going to move forward to town council?
I think we should probably talk about that in executive session, if we want to take further action there.
The pharmaceutical lawsuit,
Town council will be at your meeting on February the 12th to talk to you about what you would need to do to join that lawsuit. I spoke with them, and Carolyn Murray will be here on the 12th of February.
and the assistant DBW director, what's happening there?
Just getting ready to start the interview process on that.
And who's doing the interviewing?
Interview process will be myself, DPW Director Mark Vincent, and the DPW Administrative Assistant. We sat down, maybe last Thursday, I think it was, sat down and had a meeting with Dennis Murphy to get his input on what we thought we needed and what he thought we needed. And we're pretty much on the same page as to what we think we
good.
need, so.
Well, that's very good. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Any other questions, concerns? Okay. And then are we on to topics for future discussion?
Okay. So, this is kind of important. And
What are we on now?
we're on
Topics for
topics.
future
For future, yeah. So one of my topics is about this agenda item. Occasionally, we, that is to say the board, have things that we need to report to each other on, right? And we can do that in a number of ways. We can, without expressing opinions, deliver information electronically. But that's onerous for those of us who don't want to sit there and type a kind of, yeah. And I would like this agenda item in the future to be something where we can report to each other about things, right, that we may have gotten clued into that the rest of us haven't been at or known about without discussing it. You see what I mean? So, in other words, it's a version of the town administrator's report.
Yeah.
Because really, otherwise, we have no way in open session to tell each other all about it, and we would not let ourselves get into discussion, right?
Right,
Because
so we could send, and it should be sent, the dredging committee minutes to everybody, and that would bring you guys up to date.
Well, I just meant in general to have it as an agenda item that wasn't topics for future discussion.
Oh, you mean like
But it would be
okay.
reports
All right.
and topic, select board
Interesting.
reports
Yeah.
and topics for future discussion. Because sometimes it's not going to be a topic.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying now.
Yeah.
Madam Chair?
Mm-hmm.
Just quickly, Kellen, I think that's a great point, and I just want to bring a quick conversation I had with Jake Coburn over at CDP, who we talked a little bit about being a select board member, and as you know, he was chair in Truro. He said from time to time they had a meeting to do just what Helen's suggesting, and it was an open meeting with posted minutes, but it could be a bit of a work meeting and an exchange of information like you're proposing. My only thought on what you're proposing for tonight is it could get a little late.
That's what I was thinking,
And we
too.
could have a once-a-month meeting where we have a work meeting, and if there's not enough to do, we could cancel it.
Yeah, I was at one of their meetings. That was the one with their assessor where they were talking about the exemption, tax exemption. And Eastham used to do it. Once a month. But it doesn't come up that often. And I am not sure, I've wanted to have work meetings sometimes. We already have some, and we have the warrant work meetings coming up, ha-ha.
Right.
You know, in other words, trying to do that with a regular meeting agenda to go through the warrant, forget about it.
Well, we could start out your way, and then if we need more
see how-
time, see if we need more time and do it a different way.
And there may be nothing. In other words, there may be no reports, just
No,
as there
yeah.
may, okay, so that was my
Good.
first one.
I would think in the summertime, it would be a good way to bring summertime people up to date, too, possibly.
That's
So,
a nice idea.
The second thing is, this is really a burning issue. We met with the DOT. They came, they understood we didn't want a roundabout, and here's my future concern. I would like this board, and therefore sharing it with the public, to see that end result that came out of that meeting, about those meetings with the DOT, about what the final plan for the intersection was. Because
Now, which intersection are you referring to?
the
Are you referring to the
intersection of Main
lights?
Street and, yes, because
Okay.
remember, originally, we really wanted the
Okay,
light.
no, I just
Okay,
wanted to
but
know
wait.
which one
They
you're
haven't come
referring
back
to.
And I'll
us yet,
tell
that's
you, well, I'll tell you why I'm concerned. Because one of the things that came out last night at that meeting about the bike path, which was a wonderful meeting, it was very civilized, lots of information, was that apparently the DOT, the state may be morphing our request for dealing with that intersection into something related to the bike path. I just want to know very clearly with maps what they're talking about now, because where they left it with us is not where it may be right now.
Okay,
So, yeah.
well, I can't discuss it too much without violating open meeting law.
So next
But what I can tell you is that I have been talking with the...
Stantec.
Yes, thank you. Talking with Stantec about that intersection and what our possibilities were. And Stantec is going to come to you and present where they currently stand to see what you want to happen with that intersection.
Okay,
So
but
they will be in front of you.
that's good to know.
It's a work in
because-
progress.
Yes, except what was scary was last night, apparently the bike trail state people, it's not,
It's not true.
well,
That's
I'm
not
not.
true.
Was anyone there from the state last night, or was it just?
There was somebody
There
who
was
was very.
DCR was
No,
there?
that's who you want there, DCR, they weren't
But
there.
there was nobody there. So,
Okay.
so just,
That's
you know,
future
these are one of
concern.
these other great updates, but that Julian Sear is working, he's well aware of everything. He's gotten every letter from everybody. He's aware of the concerns. And, yes, so bike path, DOT, DCR should be,
Okay. Then there's.
should come before us with a simplified presentation, not the one that they did that was really long back in October, but,
So,
you know, an update. And I do feel for the for the people listening that they are listening. You know, they're rethinking things to a certain extent. I don't know what that extent is, though, and we can't talk about it because it's future concerns.
Yeah, so the other thing is, as we all know, our conscom did a very kind of thorough, correct job, in my opinion. Well, no, the process was good. So I also agreed with their vote about the house that's, you know, close to falling over the edge of the
Chequaset Neck,
dune on the
Yep.
gut. And of course, it's being appealed. And the conscom needs in their file a letter of support from us. Guess why? We're abutters.
Yes.
And we need to
Okay.
weigh
All
in
right.
formally. So could there be a letter that was drafted and approved at the next meeting?
Yes.
Because
Yeah,
it's important to have it in the file before it hits the court in a active way. So that was, I'm
So
sorry.
maybe you can work with Mr. Hort or Courtney on the language.
I
and-
already have a letter that's written.
Okay,
My
good.
email to all of you is open on my desk
Okay.
that I
good.
haven't closed, but you will see it tomorrow. It was written back in October, and I was told at the time, well, you're going to be too late because Conservation Commission's going to hear this November 7th. So then it didn't happen because
Yeah.
we were going to be too late. But now if we need the report, I will send you that letter, and then it'll show up on the agenda for the next meeting.
So, and it'll have the updated language referring to their vote,
Mhm.
and that we support it as abutters with a lot, blah, blah.
So
Okay.
is that something that needs to be discussed, or is that something that we could sign
Yeah.
over the weekend? Could we sign it and get it?
We need to look at the language and
I
sign it.
think you'll want to discuss
Okay,
it at a
all right,
meeting.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a, you know, it's an abutter letter, so, you know,
good,
it's not
fine.
just kind of.
Okay, can I
So
be
I'm
next?
afraid I have one more. Guys, saltwater, sorry, and then.
Just go, go,
Yeah,
go,
the
go.
saltwater ice machine on the warrant, may we have an article?
Just go buy one. It's been approved a million times.
Really? No.
We don't know where to
We
put it.
haven't voted on the money for
If-
that.
At
No.
some point, it will be brought up to you. I have asked the Shellfish Department and the Harbor Master to come up with a recommendation for the ice machine.
No,
So-
And where to put it.
No, it's, forgive me, it's the Shellfish Department that has to, they are the ones that already know the best kinds. They've already done some research.
I think the Shellfish Department and the Harbor Master can come up with a resolution, because the Harbor Master is going to have to
Oh,
be
yeah, yeah,
involved
yeah.
as to where the location might be.
Totally. But the thing is, please, a warrant article for their appropriation. Yeah. So we have it on this year's, you know, warrant. So I'm fierce about this. You know,
Okay.
we're about to start looking
Yeah,
at warrant
I
articles.
keep thinking it's being done.
Madam Chair?
Yes,
Through you to
Kathleen.
Helen, I was hoping that that would be something that SPAT might donate and that the town didn't have to pony up for. They have mentioned in the
Yeah.
past that they were willing to donate a saltwater ice machine, so.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's, I know you're
So-
hell-bent on getting one, but maybe a warrant article doesn't necessarily mean
That
the
would
way
be
to
better.
pursue it. So if I could go forward with just a few things.
Mm-hmm.
Through you to Mr. Hort, I'm again going to ask about how we can get back on track with the 2018 comprehensive plan and maybe secure notes from Brian Carlson so that we can, maybe not now before town meeting, but over the summer months, finalize that comprehensive plan for the town of Wellfleet. My second concern goes to fellow Select Board member Helen Miranda Wilson, who brought this up, I want to say more than a month ago. And this is something that I would like to consider as a warrant article. We need to replace the fuel tanks down at the marina. And what that cost might be, where they're going to be located, how they're going to be positioned down there. I'm hoping that it's something we could move forward with. I feel they're at the end of their lifeline, and we're pushing the envelope with an accident down there. So whatever that might take, moving right along. Again, Madam Chair, through you to Mr. Hort, when might we see open meeting law training for us?
I've asked a number of times for town council to set a date. They just recently gave us a date in February, so I have to see if I can confirm that, so.
Thank you. That's it, Janet. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Oh.
I had
Jane's got
someone.
something.
Oh, you do? Okay, sorry, I didn't see.
Yeah, this kind of is both my role as clerk and also as something I think we need a future agenda item. Everybody got the information about the Massachusetts Shellfish Initiative, which the state is involved in, the DEP, and it's a heavy hitter task force, and then subcommittees are forming, and it's got, there's a lot of material to read, but it's looking at a comprehensive plan for the future of shellfish in Massachusetts, and the Chatham Selectwoman was concerned enough to reach out to us, so I'd like to put this on the future agenda for next meeting, and I know Nancy's been working on this, so I'll follow up with her and see what she thinks is sort of how we should proceed, and I'll touch base with Dan about reaching out to Sarah Peak. I don't know if any of our select women want to be on the task force if that came up, but we've got Chatham's town manager, we've got the mayor of New Bedford, we've got the town manager of Duxbury, we've got the mayor of Gloucester, and there really isn't any Wellfleet participation, and since we're the third largest shellfishing producer and those jobs are important to us, if there's a comprehensive plan for the future of shellfish in Massachusetts, I think it would benefit the task force to have us there. So I'll follow up on it and then follow up with Helen and put it on the agenda for next time.
Yeah, through you.
Yes.
Yeah, we should talk about it. It is a big deal. But Nancy's role and Nancy's expertise and the fact that she does need to show up at those meetings anyway. In other words, if anybody goes besides Nancy, that would be good. But Nancy is the one who really has to be there.
Agreed, and she's already there, but the task force is different. I think, Helen, you and I should chat.
No, I know. It's
yeah, because I want to get your thoughts.
I agree with you.
Yeah, okay,
We
good.
don't want to substitute somebody for Nancy. That's my point.
No, absolutely
No,
not.
and she said she's been going since
They're
the
different.
beginning.
They're different groups with,
Right.
you know.
So
anyways.
what's the request for the future? Just to
Uh,
bring up
put-
the committee, or what?
Just to put it on the Massachusetts Shellfish Initiative on the
Agenda?
agenda, and then I'll follow up with and listen to the people who are Helen, to Nancy, and so forth.
Okay.
Like, get the input together, get the issue nutshelled.
I've
Okay.
got a couple things.
Good.
Jerry, you're looking for a job, right?
Huh? The Shellfish Shack that sits down across from the bookstore restaurant.
Mm-hmm.
At some point, I would like to see that moved into a location that can be used as historical information and that on shellfishing,
Thank you.
so on and so forth.
Thank you. people say that that's, whenever I mention
It's
something like
useless
that.
where it's at.
Well, first of all, at again, we shouldn't be discussing this, but at a previous meeting, I think in December, it was agreed that the DPW would fix it up so it looks really, really good and assess it. Yeah, no,
That's
make
my
it, yeah.
question.
But yeah, so this is also part of this whole plan that has been kind of thrown around about 3 Kendrick too. Can we make something about historical presentations or about aquaculture?
Yeah.
So someday, that's, I don't know when, that's always been going around, but yeah, again, a plan for the marina.
And, okay.
And that gets pursued and managed.
And the other thing is, this needs to go into executive session, but got to know where we're at standing with Mac at some point.
Yeah.
I think we need
Yeah.
to talk about that.
I don't know if he's figured it out either, but yeah, we do.
Yeah, we're at. And one last one, in the charter. Oh, can somebody explain to me exactly what an ad hoc committee is?
It's a committee that's created just for a specific temporary purpose. So if we wanted to paint this building, we could do an ad hoc committee just to look into painting it.
And this is not what I'm talking about in the charter yet, but where in the charter does it give the selectmen the power to form committees?
It does.
No, it doesn't.
Yes,
What-
by default, under state law, I believe.
No, it's not in the charter. Because I read the charter recently, and the moderator forms all ad hoc committees. That's what I'm just saying, and there's nothing in there in the charter that gives the selectmen the power to appoint committees. Okay, when I'm done, Helen, you may
Thank you.
babble on.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm
Okay.
controlling myself. It's difficult.
The
I
guy
apologize.
is getting old.
No, I'm getting old.
All right, and the other one is, I would like all you selectmen to read the charter, section 3-7-1.
Okay, what is that?
And this is in reference to the town administrator.
Okay.
It says in that section that the selectmen cannot speak to any town employee without the permission of the town administrator. My take on that is the town administrator works for the Board of Selectmen. We do not work for the town administrator. How can I go down and I sit down, or if I want to talk to Nancy, or if I want to go down and talk to Mike, or any other, or Nancy in the assessors department, I don't think I should have to come up and get permission from the town administrator to do that. And I would like let me finish.
Okay.
I would like to have an article, if everyone agreed, to go in on town meeting to remove that section.
So if I've read the charter right, we are allowed to talk with town employees. We are not allowed to instruct or tell town employees what to
True.
do.
If you go back
So
and
that's-
read that, Janet, go
those
back
aren't the
and
right
read
word.
it.
Yeah, it does.
It says
Yes,
if
it
you
does.
want to go to talk.
My charter
It says
does.
to talk to a town employee, you
Does it?
need to have the town administrator's permission.
That's the language.
And go back and read it.
Okay, well, I think, actually, we could look it up on there, but I think it means more instructive, that you could certainly talk to them. You
No,
just can't.
excuse me.
Okay. Helen.
Respectfully,
Okay,
this was
Ms.
2.5
Charter.
years of my life, and
Okay.
we talked about this very carefully, Jerry. Every single time I want to communicate with anybody on staff, with the exception of people in the town administrator's office, right? In other words,
Just get it
Yeah.
out.
I ask Dan, and I do it, it takes 2 seconds, and I always get permission. And the reason to leave that in there, and boy, did we talk about this when we were doing the revisions. It was in there before. We made the language a little kinder. it protects staff. And the town administrator can easily just say, sure, you can talk to Nancy, and you can get blanket permissions. For example, when Nancy came on, I'd been doing a lot of administrative stuff on the Shellfish Committee, so I said to Dan, look, if it's all right with Nancy at her convenience, can she be able to talk to me and call me up and ask me questions about stuff that I've been doing so I can slowly pass her all this stuff? And she and I did that over a number of months, and it was done. I didn't have to call him every time then. But I think it's a very good protection, and the other people on the Charter Review Committee, we looked at that so closely, and we decided to leave it in. We took out the word deal with. It's not a drag. It's not permission. It's just making sure that the person who's supervising all these employees, A, knows that you're communicating,
Okay,
but
so
B,
this
can
is all
protect them.
future agenda items
Yeah.
and stuff, so we could have a clarification on that, or an interpretation of it, because I interpreted it differently than you did, so.
Fair enough.
But
So-
I agree that we can certainly talk to them, but we cannot instruct, and we can't ask them, like, how's your salary going, or something like that. We can't get personal, but I'll let Dan say
I
something.
would just remind you that this is the time for any of you who want anything to be on the town meeting warrant to bring
get
forward
going.
ideas, and for us to be able to put them on future agendas. So if there's anything you want on the warrant, including what Jerry was just speaking of, it should be brought forward, and then the select board can vote yes or no whether they want to insert it into the warrant, so.
Yes.
Just quickly, because I know, I do think that it's admirable intent, but possibly deserves tweaking, and I wouldn't want to suggest anything without going through Dan, because he has to manage the whole
Well,
darn town. But I mean, things happen, like you run into somebody in the parking lot, and they want to talk to you, and you can't like say, oh, hang on, I'm going to dash up to Dan's office. And also, if I need a piece of information before I go into Dan, it wouldn't be the worst thing to ask, does it need tweaking? And I'd want to first hear from Dan, but.
Well, I think we should all read the charter that way. We should always read the charter. And let's, because again, there's always different interpretations of the law. That's a whole nother thing, so we'll all do that.
Do you think we should discuss it, or do you?
Not now.
No, I mean as a future.
Can I offer something? The Charter Review
feel it.
Committee is going to have to meet. We're planning a meeting now. We still exist. And I suggest the best place, given the town's request to them, formal request, and doing charter changes.
So you know what,
is
we're
to
now
go and
going
see
on
them.
over 3 hours, so
Yeah, it's to be
do you
discussed.
do you want the charter committee to come before us to do a work session? What do you want?
No, I think we should go to the Charter Review Committee's next meeting, which is going to come up really soon.
Helen, respectfully, I think we should even see if it's enough of an issue, have a brief chat, and if it is an issue, then go there.
Okay, but,
Just everyone,
Yeah.
please read it, and then we
Yeah,
can,
yeah.
we can then talk about it, all right?
and.
So I'm asking, I'm not
Yeah,
asking
that's-
for
Got
a
it.
whole-blown charter review committee meeting.
Move to
If we can come to some conclusion, then maybe we can do that. But why don't we just talk about it at some point? There are things
Yeah.
in there that we can leave out, like not giving orders and so on and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel if I'm on a weekend and I want to walk down and talk to Mike, I want to walk down and talk to him. I don't have to call Dan on the phone to Provincetown.
Okay, I think that's a good point. Okay, minutes?
But there was one thing that we are waiting to hear from our building inspector and from the DPW about the cost of possibly repairing the Shellfish Shack.
So
And
hold
that was
on-
a
yes,
motion.
Yeah.
Right. In other words, it's not happening until we hear about the cost.
I'm talking about the one
No,
across from
I'm
the
correcting
bookstore.
Yes, no, I know, but Janet said something which I just
I'm
correct.
saying that, once again, the harbor needs a nice plan. That'll-
Yes.
You know.
Okay. So, okay,
You're
minutes.
going to be on that committee. Go ahead.
Which one?
Minutes. You're going to be on all the committees now that you're not a select
Yeah.
person. You're going to be on
Good
all
luck.
the committees.
But
Good
you have to
luck.
wait 30 days.
Okay,
Of
minutes.
course, you know, all this, Dan may not be here, so who knows?
Oh, God, let's not even think about it. Okay.
All right. Correspondence and vacancy report.
Okay, there were, well, the one correspondence thing I mentioned, which was the serious letter about the house on the Guy.
Right.
And then, did anyone, we got correspondence about the December 10th Cape Cod Commission meeting, the regional policy plan hearing. Did anybody go to that?
I thought Janet did, didn't you?
Yeah, I can't remember that stuff, man. That was already
You
back
did.
in
It was-
December.
Yeah, I just
Yeah,
wondered. It's a
yeah.
correspondence question.
Yeah.
Okay, that was it for me, for correspondence. So minutes, you want minutes?
Yes.
Okay, lots of amendments, I'm sorry, December 11th. And the first bullet under announcements, open session, and public comment on page 1, and these are not,
Get ready, Courtney.
yeah,
I've
court,
warned her.
yeah, and it's not too scary. Wilson asked how the Select Board could approve a letter about this issue.
Where are you?
I'm on the first bullet, on the first
All right,
page,
Wilson
under
asked-
announcements, open session, and public comment. Reinhardt, wanted,
Okay.
So the amendment is in the last line of that first bullet. Wilson asked how the Select Board could approve a letter about this issue. It was determined that this could happen at the meeting on December, the next meeting, December 18th, I believe, or whenever it was. That's the First Amendment.
Can I ask a question, Helen? May I, Mr. Chairman?
You may.
Do you go through and watch
Yeah,
the videos?
very often,
Watch
if I don't
it,
remember
yeah.
it exactly.
You do?
Yeah.
Okay, that's
It's
what I want to know.
Yeah, and it takes time.
It must take a long time.
It does when I need to, yeah. Sometimes I just remember, but other times I have to go and check, and I hope there will be less of that. So, 1, 2, 3, 4 bullets down, at the end of that sentence, Smith had submitted her resignation from the, and I don't know which 2 committees she had, so that has to be checked.
Natural Resources Advisory Board.
NRAB
And
and,
Personnel Board. Those were the 2 committees.
thank you, you see? This is,
They're right in here. All right.
yeah,
moving
you're
on.
right.
I've never watched one.
I've watched
Sorry.
one.
You're absolutely right, Janet. That was too late at night. I'm sorry. So, second to last bullet under, it's Fire Chief Pauley. Oh, this is important. So, the first sentence, Fire Chief Pauley reported an improvement in Wellfleet's property insurance classification as it relates to coverage for damage caused by fire. Because what's in there doesn't, it's very specific. Okay, so moving right along on page 4, at the top of the page. Now, this private group that was meeting, that wasn't what we just approved the charge for, the dredging, was that?
It shouldn't be the task force.
That's what I thought.
The dredging committee.
So just, no, yeah,
Yeah?
yeah.
Dredging committee.
Thank you. And it's not capitalized. It's just a dredging committee.
No, it is the dredging committee.
Yeah, I did the. Just looking into purchasing. Okay. So then, that's, yeah, okay. Page 5. 1, 2, 3, 4 paragraphs down. This was the whole conversation about the process. Wilson said that an executive session was needed first before the chair met to negotiate with the town administrator. Insert that. and then a little farther down, the charter addresses severance and removal, no contract renewal, not contract renewal. Insert that. And then in the paragraph about approval of pavement cut for Eversource, at the beginning of that paragraph, it's completely unclear what this is about, and insert, this was in regard to the new transformer in the back of Town Hall, And then, the last page, page 6, the paragraph that starts with my name, under topics for future discussion, the second paragraph down. Wilson asked that the policy on pesticides be a future agenda item, not the policy on policies. And the last sentence in there should be struck. She said scheduling that hearing should be placed on a future agenda. I did not. So that's the first set of minutes. And may I move to approve them with amendments?
Yes.
Second?
I move, yeah, okay.
All in favor?
I
Any
move
other
to approve the
additions?
minutes of December 11th with
Okay.
amendments.
Thank you,
As
Helen.
amended.
Good job.
And here's for Courtney. And then the second one, oh, God. So, the top of page 2, the first paragraph, insert the sentence at the end of the first paragraph. From the Finance Committee, only Robert Wallace was present. It was described as a joint meeting, and it didn't turn out to be that.
Right.
And then, under the Police Department section, at the end of the first sentence, which ends with the word special officers, and I did listen to that whole section again, and this seems like an important fact to me. The training required for them will be changing, and they may become obsolete. Those are exact words. However, this doesn't affect the 2020 budget. And
Right.
then, under the Shellfish Department, insert, it's the second to last line on the page. And the sentence begins, Chivetta explained Shellfish Department goals of producing 1 million oysters and 1 million clams, as well as the increased need for oversight of boat patrol. That was a really important part of that. And I resisted throwing in the numbers, okay? Say thank you. Page 3, fourth line down, sentence ends with data on licenses. Insert, after speaking with the beach administrator, insert that, because that was an important part of what she talked about during the meeting. She didn't just do this all on her own. And a few lines down, Wallace commented upon balancing the town's investment and the insert current oversupply of oysters.
Mm-hmm.
And also insert, he recommended having a barge, but not an upweller. This was not made clear. And the last sentence, or second to last sentence in that paragraph, Hort clarified the 2 additions of an extra $2, the 2 additions, this is referring to additions to the budget, of an extra $2 an hour for the data processing tasks and $750 for cleaning. And that is it.
Nice work, Helen.
Thank you. I always feel like half embarrassed and half really good.
Yeah, we're really grateful.
Now the story of,
Some of those were really important.
Yeah, and,
Okay, so you wanna
and
make a
so I move that we approve the minutes of Tuesday, December 18th, 2018, as amended.
Second?
all in favor? Okay, I'll say that's unanimous.
So when I'm
To
reading.
adjourn?
Second,
All in favor?
So
Sec-
moved?
yeah.
Thank you.
So Courtney,